Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Pat, you ready?
Good job.
Ed, are we good? Okay. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2024 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December of 2023, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Wright.
Here.
Mr. Daffis. Mr. DeLuca.
Here.
Ms. Engel.
Here.
Mayor Adams.
Here, thank you.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas desire of the governing body to comply with the provisions of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner. Now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee. Township of Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the action, discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
Moved.
Second.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Ms. Engel?
Yes.
Mayor Adams?
Yes, thank you. Please rise for salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're here for our budget workshop. This is our third budget workshop. This one, we will be discussing new employee requests, revenue, capital recommendations, and budget recommendations. And then we'll have some public comment, and then we will adjourn. So with that, Mr. Weary, did you want to lead the budget discussion, or? Are you
Yes,
on?
thank you, Mayor. So we can start if you'd like. We have a few areas to cover tonight. You want to start with new employee requests?
That's what it says on the agenda, so I suppose so.
All right, good enough place. So in front of you, and what I'll bring up on the screen is an overview of each of the new position requests that we received from department heads. There's also backup there for each position. We'll go through them, starting with DPW, working down through engineering, administration, finance, and recreation. Some of these items are already included in the proposed budget, which you've seen a few versions of. and some of them are not included. That's mostly a function of just how they came into finance and how much time we had to get them into the budget. It's not an indication of where our priorities lie. So starting with number one, this is an office assistant for the Department of Public Works. Right now, we have one office assistant in Public Works doing primarily Public Works, helps out a bit with engineering. There had been a time a while ago when this was staffed at two positions. There is a tremendous need for this position. There's a lot of work to be done in that office. It all falls on one person who does a great job, but there's just too much that in a day she's unable to get to. And a lot of that is getting back to residents and informing them of where we are with projects or addressing their issues like recycling pickup notifications or, scheduling of trees to be removed, scheduling of pothole repair. So a lot of that is this new person could help with that response to resident inquiries and to reduce the delays for how the building and ground operation is scheduled. So that request is for the total request is for $84,000, which includes salary and additional benefit costs.
Is that the office assistant or buildings and grounds?
No,
63.
yeah, you
Oh,
just.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I thought maybe I missed.
No, I apologize. So that is $63,000 for all in, which includes salary and benefit cost.
Right. So when someone calls engineering, does that call come in here or DPW? Or is it,
Depends. I mean, there is engineering staff that's here in town hall.
No,
and They
yeah.
have the right extension and the right number. Yeah, they could get here, but generally those go over to Mr. Kittner in engineering, which is at the Public Works building.
right,
Well, if you call the engineering number, it goes upstairs.
Yeah.
Right now, there's just one staff engineer upstairs. So that was a.
No.
So
It goes to Roseanne.
the engineering main number?
Yeah.
Okay. I had that wrong.
Well, you know what? That was the old thing. Maybe you're talking about extensions now, right?
yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah,
most of us up here call cell numbers, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
For department.
I thought it goes up here. If you could just dial the, like whatever says
Main
engineer.
number.
I'm wondering, and the reason I'm asking is because of, if they're all going to Public Works to the same, the office assistant who currently works there.
Mhm.
Then, but if some of them are coming here, I'm just trying to figure out the lay of the land and why they need another office assistant.
Like I said, the majority of it's for Public Works. I mean, we get a
Okay.
lot of inquiries into this office from residents with public work questions and requests. They handle a lot of the jitney schedule as we're putting new information out to the public, new schedules for leaf pickups, looking at schedules. They're working on that. They're working with what tasks are going to staff through the DPW superintendent. So the one person there has a lot of work and more work than she can currently handle.
They're also collecting fees there?
And who requested this? The engineer, director of Public Works?
Yeah, Director of Public Works.
Okay.
We're going to talk about them all and then go back, or we're going to make decisions one by
Yeah,
one?
I think, however you prefer. I would ask questions. I would ask all the questions now. And then maybe when we're through all of them and we understand the full
little
request
bit
and the
more
full
of that.
impact, we can talk about priorities.
So I'd like to go through all of them and then hear at the end
who's
what
next?
your recommendation is for the top 3 positions.
Sure. Okay, so then number 2 is DPW Buildings and Grounds Worker. This is another assistant to, another employee to assist with buildings and grounds. So we have a full staff for buildings and grounds. They have a lot of work. They check in on a lot of issues that come up, boiler repair, some, wall repair and electrical issues and fire alarms going off. And we have a lot of buildings and they get pulled in a lot of different directions. And so there's a request to add one person to that department. That is a total funding request of $84,000. Next on the list is,
Just on this, is there any if we were to approve this, would there be any savings in future building repairs, or building repairs are still gonna need to be done, right?
Will
This is,
still need to be done. Some of the things that we currently sub out may need to be done in, or may be able to be done in-house, like when we do like paint and spackle, that kind of stuff where we have had to sub out in the last few years for that work. That we may be able to do some more of that in-house.
yeah, those are usually bigger, like when we did a whole office and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we've tackled some smaller projects recently. We just did some of that at the Bergdorf. We do it at 1978 quite often regarding like, especially with painting and spackling as they put up and take. We've done it the senior center recently where we had a vendor in there to do a good amount of spackle and paint. And, you know, this is just one example of the kind of work that currently we're subbing out.
How many buildings and grounds workers are there in total?
I don't know.
I think 3, right? Josh
Josh elected
and Joe
and
John,
and Tom, yes, so 3.
John's the supervisor.
Okay, next one.
yes, the next is
Paul and Ringo and George.
DPW, roads and recycling worker. So this is similar to the last request. This is for an additional staff person to work on the road crew and also maintaining recycling. They, you know, it's just another one of those things where we have a lot of work and DPW sees the need for additional staffing. This isn't something where we would generally sub the work out if we're not able to get to it, but we would be able to get to more work with the position. The next is for engineering construction observer.
Oh, wait, are we staying on DPW? I thought you wanted to just.
That was the last one.
DPW,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
we're just
so
going through
the-
the-
And your rank of the three of them is.
No,
I would go through the rank.
No, all of the people.
I would
Ah.
go through the rank of it.
Yeah.
Rather go, you'd rather go by department?
No, I'd rather go through everything and then
Okay,
rank
go
them up.
for it.
There's only another 4 items. The next one is engineering. So this is for a staff engineer, construction observer. This is one of those things where right now we sub the work out for observing construction projects, preparing cost estimates, assisting with grant applications. And this would allow us, our existing staff that's doing some of this work to focus more on designing and managing the project. So we have existing engineers that end up performing some observing functions on projects, or we sub that out to contract.
We also have a line in the budget for in-house engineering.
We do. That's a little different in that that is a capital line that
Right.
we use to pay the salaries of staff that work on capital projects.
Right.
This would be a staffed position. Could it be charged to that line? Yes, but ultimately we end up funding it, be it through capital or be it through our operating.
We now pay for like road work, we pay GPI.
Hmm.
And we bill that to the project.
That's right.
Right.
So would we not employ GPI if we had this person?
That's right. That's right. And I don't want to say specifically GPI, but yes, the
Yeah.
idea is that we could
Yeah.
do more. There's
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But there's 2 pieces to this. One, we could do more of that work that we currently sub out. And 2, this person could free up work that's currently being done by engineers. It would be in the engineering department, but this doesn't require a PE. So we could free up some of, we have 2 engineers with PEs. We could free up some of them to do other.
I just feel like for a town this size, we already have assistant engineer and an assistant engineer and an engineer. That's a lot for a small town.
You're seeing all the requests, so that's before.
I know.
Sure.
Okay.
Administration, this is for a public information officer. The idea is to have one person in the Department of Administration who handles all of the communications for the township, some of which are already in our department. So we put out the weekly email blast. We don't do much on Facebook. We don't do any on Instagram. So it would be to beef up those 2 pages and to revamp some of what we do for our current outflow, those weekly email blasts. In addition, streamline all of the communications, not just in my department, but across all departments. So right now, everybody kind of works in silos. Administration does ours, community services does theirs, health, police department. Everybody has separate schedules for outflow. types of outflow, looks of outflow. They all use social media a little bit differently. And there is a benefit, not just to our internal operations, but also to the public with having one person who handles this. So, on the public side, to be able to have one person who's managing the schedule, so I'm not getting a couple emails from a couple different departments in the same day, that manages the look. So when I get an email from the Township of Maplewood, I have some expectation of what it looks like, how it's laid out, what type of text and wording there is, and it makes it easier for me to follow the township through all the different platforms that we have. So this one person would, bring all that under one roof. I expect that the generation of content would still be with the department, but putting it together, styling it, getting it out across more channels, so social media especially, and getting it out in a way that is easier to understand for the public would be the role of this person.
What about other stuff that's not just marketing, if you will, because that's more like marketing?
Yeah, I mean,
Emergency notices.
I think the person who is good for this role would likely have a background in press more than marketing. So, maybe they were a reporter somewhere. And I've seen a lot of those that's in other municipalities who fills those functions, people that had been a reporter for a while. And unfortunately, due to especially print media being downsized or looking for other work, they fit really well into these positions. So in addition to, our outflow, they could handle some of our media, they could handle some of our website, even things like our budget address and getting information that maybe Mr. Kaloje and I have together in a budget document with charts and graphs and things that make it, that certainly is within the wheelhouse of someone who would be right for this position.
So in the wheelhouse for somebody in this position, in my mind, for a municipality would be fashioning basically public statements, even by elected officials or by administration
We could.
or police, fire. I think that's almost the more important part. So that it's a consistent message from, and that, there's nobody going rogue in wherever, not just us, but everywhere.
Yeah, if the township committee has an interest in that, they could do that. I mean, it's up to each individual committee person to decide if they want to use this person and, what they want to work on. I mean,
No,
No, I think what I'm sorry, I think what Miss Adams is saying, Mayor Adams is saying, sorry, is that this person should be a strategic thinker and advisor in communication so that when issues come up and when they're monitoring social media or seeing things come up, they can say, hey, Mayor Adams, we should put a statement on this. And then it's that person putting out the statement or Maplewood putting out the statement and not Mayor Adams posting in all the different Facebook groups and whatnot. We need someone who can think strategically about how to communicate to this very engaged community that we have
well,
here.
that's where I think the political experience would come in handy for somebody who's either been a reporter in politics or been a,
Press room.
worked for that. I mean, a communications director, for the White House obviously controls the messages that go out and fashions them for the elected people so that there's a consistent message and that they're not saying anything off the wall or.
Crisis communications
Yeah,
backgrounds
crisis
or government backgrounds or consumer
I mean,
background versus B2B.
yeah, I feel like if it was something more with that rather than just a template of gathering everything, because once you get the template done, it's just
Yeah, that's.
plugging it in or what you started off with. But I think the more valuable thing to me, I mean, it's all valuable, but would be sort of like you were saying, like a communicator on behalf of.
And a spokesperson, which goes in
Yeah.
traditional statements as well as on media or creating the newsletters or the look. It kind of all goes hand in hand, but
Yeah,
it should
yeah.
be all of those things.
Pair of eyes to look at stuff.
I don't want to downplay the value that they would provide to the departments, because not just, in addition to being a collector of all that information, they need to be an editor, not of words, but in how much is going out.
Right.
Right now, we have great communications, but you get them and you can, scroll for pages on what's available on it. And I know for me, it can be overwhelming. And I've heard that from residents as well. So, they're making those decisions on what's important to get out, timeliness of how it gets out. So I think that'll play a big role should this position be funded. But yes, to your point, they could certainly help craft that response from the TAP committee, and especially engaging people where they are on social media especially.
And do you see this as a part-time or full-time in your preference?
It could certainly be a full-time.
I know it could.
Yeah.
I'm asking what, so you see it as preferred full-time?
Always preferred full-time. Yeah, I mean, that's without considering budget implications, preferred full-time. There's no doubt that there's enough work for this person
There
that
certainly
they
is.
could work full-time. At the end of this, after we go through all the positions, we're going to start talking budget impact, and that's when, I'll give you my ideas on
Okay.
part-time, because that's when we're going to have to make decisions.
You know, with all the things you're talking about, if you think about a newspaper, the reporter writes the story, a different person does the headline because the reporter usually doesn't figure out the look,
Not
the
anymore.
draw, and the grab.
Let's go.
And I hear a lot in this one person, and I think it's almost impossible to find a person to do both of these jobs.
But I think you could.
So
tweak
it's
them.
changed. So media has changed because I come from the traditional with the newspapers of what you're saying, but nowadays the communications professionals need to know how to do everything. because
Everything.
Digital
They're jack
marketing
of
is
all
so much a
trades.
part of the day-to-day.
Right.
That it's all kind of interwoven, and it's about the looking holistically and figuring out what of the 50 things that we're pushing out, what are the top 5 that we want to be focusing on that are revenue drivers or have to do with goals that we're doing or whatnot. Just having an overview of everything going on in Maplewood, and then piecing out, these are the 5 areas that we need to focus on. Oh, we know you love this project and it's great and we can still promote it, but these are the 5 that are really going to advance what we're trying to do here in Maplewood.
Right, and at
like
the
someone
same
who has
time,
that piece.
maintaining those major areas, the arts and culture, the recreation, the whatever, and having links attached to those things for more information, da-da-da-da.
And it'll also help free up some
Lot
time
of
from
hours.
the people in the various departments, because I hear like incoming calls from residents, I mean, a communications person can also help with that because their goal is communicating with residents or putting out information to anticipate questions residents are going to have to try to limit the amount of incoming calls or emails that are coming in. Because if you give information out, less people are going to be looking for it. And if you give information out where the people are, then they won't be flooding us with all the tags and whatnot because you can find it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to happen, but I also.
Oh, no, people are
I
going to still
also-
call.
I also think that we now have people that we're paying in different departments to do some of this work. And it's unclear to me if we take that work away from folks, what are those people gonna do? Why are we, if that's part of their job now, we're hiring somebody to do part of their job. It seems to me we're spending double somebody to do this.
Is there something?
Right.
Doing that they could be doing because they're doing that?
I can just think of
Or
one
would be
department
doing.
That's not the case. They do all
Yeah.
of the stuff, but they could really use something off their plate.
I'm
Yeah,
not
I
sure
think
that's
that-
everywhere. I'm
Not
not.
Not
It's
everywhere,
it's
but
definitely
I can
not
think of at
everywhere.
least a couple of departments that are like that.
I think, and you talk about, the ability of one person to do both of these, but right now it's
Well,
recreation.
it's more than both. There's a lot of roles that you laid out.
Right, but right
There's a
now,
lot of roles.
it's the person who's doing that is doing that on top of their recreation duties, on top of their police department duties, administration duties. So, yeah, I agree with you that these are a lot of things that we're asking one person to do. Right now, we're asking one person to do all those things, and they're already doing what's general.
Yeah, but look, this is the government. This is taxpayers' dollars.
I agree.
So yeah, we want to roll out everything, but it's not, I mean, part of working for government is there's a lot to do. And when you work for government, that's what happens. And there's a lot of jobs to get done. We do it ourselves. So it troubles me that we are trying to solve a problem. We're going to be paying somebody or some entity something to do this. And we're not making adjustments on the other staffing. It's unclear to me what these folks are going to do. We say there's other work for them to do, but lay it out. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
All I see is, let's do this. So, okay, if XYZ in the health department is not going to do this anymore, not going to do the health newsletter, which comes out, or we're promoting, then what is that person going to do? How's that work going to be different? How's the work at the health department going to be advanced, if it is?
So that's kind of like what I see this as possible if we were to fund it would be to start as part-time and also get things set up to the extent that it becomes plug-in, you know, a little bit more later. But I also know that different departments are much busier during different times of the year. And then maybe that's when this person would pick up slack so that people are getting their other work done. But I think to Mr. DeLuca's point, it's fair for us to have an idea of what jobs they would be doing in any particular department were this to be taken off their plate. But if the content is still being created by them and it's just being put in by this person, then maybe that's not really getting removed entirely from their page, just shortened.
Jordan.
And have we thought about hiring a firm as opposed to bringing on a person?
I've thought about it and I've asked around about it, like the firms that would do this type of work. I have a few connections, and the feedback they provided was that's not the type of work generally that those firms want to provide, right? That's not that's not what drives their business. And usually it's kind of like the last thing that they want to get to is working with a small.
I mean, a big firm, yeah, but you could have, there are people,
There are
obviously,
people that
who
would
are
do it,
doing
undoubtedly.
like consultant.
But I don't know if there's not there, other than like maybe single individuals who have this as
Right.
as a like
Have their own
individual
consulting.
interest, as far as companies who do this type of PR, media, messaging work. This isn't the
Well, and I think it's
so
important,
that makes me not almost want to put that with them because
right, because you might not be getting the same person every time, and it's important that you have the same person at the very least. But that's something that could be done by, you know, many of us who've had our own consulting gigs, right, on, and doing it on that level. But, okay, next.
next is accounting assistant in finance, which I'll let Mr. Kaloje discuss. Not this here.
Is your mic on? I don't
It's on.
think It's not.
Oh, it's green. There.
All right, there we go. The other one stayed red.
Yeah, they're.
Thank you all. The request is simple. When I first started here in 2018, we had 10 employees working in the finance department, but they were a highly seasoned staff. We had multiple redundant licenses in the office. And so we were able to consolidate down to 7 employees from 10 and spread that work out. Unfortunately, since that time, we've had a great deal of turnover. The department now is pretty green. We only have 2 licenses. We've got 2 people that are currently going for licenses. And when the time comes, we will obviously send more people to get that education as well. But the finance department is struggling. We used to have one dedicated individual to handle 24 bank accounts and the bank reconciliations of those accounts. And then from there, reports were generated, and then different people would wind up taking care of making the adjustments. Since then, we've tried at a rotational basis where we've been putting different people in charge of different accounts that aren't necessarily something that they're involved in, so that we maintain our internal controls and not have the same person following a transaction from the beginning to the end. But as you can see from our audit reports over the last few years, we've been struggling to do that. And so the request is to hire, instead of a higher level person, to hire an accounting assistant. Their job would be specifically to handle bank reconciliations for us, all 24 of them. Realistically, that will take them probably about 3 weeks and a week off before the next bank statements wind up coming in. We would also like to move the fixed asset inventory, which is something we're statutorily required to maintain. We currently outsource that for $6,000 a year. So obviously with this new person, they would be able to handle our fixed asset inventory, and we can take the $6,000 that's in other expenses and use it to offset their salary. We would then also utilize that person at any given time during crunch time when we're going through our files, because it's shred day and we're getting ready to go down to the Government Records Council and wind up destroying records that we no longer need to maintain because the 6 years is up. We would have that person helping us out with some of the physical moving of and identifying of the files that we've been keeping. So it's certainly something that would help us address the issues that we've been dealing with for the last few years, and it's the reason why it's now a request.
Anybody have any questions? Hey, recreation custodian.
So the last item from Community Services is a recreation custodian. This person would be dedicated to cleaning buildings under the purview of the Community Services Department, especially crucial during the summer months when we have both camps that are heavily involved in our buildings, and also during all the months where we have bathrooms open in public parks. Right now, especially in the public parks, we have to outsource the cleaning of those restrooms. We pay about $40,000 a year to do that. And in addition, for the spaces that we have, we rely a lot on DPW, Public Works, to clean our community services buildings. And that's difficult because, especially in the summer, they're always in demand, and scheduling them can be difficult when they're working across with another department and they've got a lot of other duties to do. So the request is for this custodian. The all-in with salary and benefits is $46,000.
So this would be under community services and not under DPW?
That's right.
And
And
but when
dedicated to community services. And the thought there is you put them under DPW finds work for them to do, and they
Right.
have plenty of work for them to do. And
Well, they've got
recreation-
3 other employees now.
Recreation feels like they have a specific need for one person dedicated to them, and that they could fill their time.
Yeah, because in years past, it's been hard to get people to go and take on those jobs, particularly when they're at the Woodland or
Mhm.
whatever, and they've originally started over at Seda Hart. So if we don't give them enough activities, enough regular things to do, then those people end up leaving.
No, these aren't those are the attendants. That's
Well,
a
some of
different,
them-
those are a different group. You know,
Yeah.
who's flying this plane? If we hire a custodian to work at DPW,
Mhm.
and we tell the DPW director that this custodian is dedicated to recreation,
Yeah.
then why wouldn't they be dedicated to recreation? We're in charge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we could easily solve the thing that you said. They couldn't be assigned anywhere else. We just tell them they have to be at the recreation buildings.
Could we, yeah, we could solve that,
Right?
sure.
Okay,
we
so
could solve
that's
that.
really not the justification.
No, it's not the justification for an additional person. No. So if we hired an additional person, could we put them in DPW and have them assigned to recreation? If you approved this additional hire, absolutely, you could do that. The thought process, though, is recreation has a full-time need for this position. So put them under the position so that they can be at the direction of the Director of Community Services. Just like building attendants are under the direction of the Arts and Culture Manager. They do building attendant work, setup, breakdown. Could you say that's DPW? Sure, but it's under community, it's under Arts and Culture because they have either a full-time or a dedicated part-time job working just in that department. So
Let me tell you what's going to happen. We're going to put we have custodial operations in DPW. Now we're setting up a parallel custodial operations in the community services.
Mhm.
Then we're going to need a vehicle. Then we're going to need all the supplies. Then we're going to need uniforms. We have all that stuff at DPW. It makes sense to consolidate it and just dedicate that person through your order as the administrator that person works on rec.
we can do that.
Can I ask a question about that? Just with the communication between the two departments in that situation? I think the reporting structure was what's going to be important. Like that person's reporting to somebody in community services because they're working in the camps and the park bathrooms and whatnot. So somebody, if the manager is DPW, then I think we're creating this grapevine phone chain thing again. And so putting it in community services kind of nixes out the middleman. And it's just like, we're directing you what to do.
Then generally, like, let's say each day, the Director of Community Services talking to the Director of Public Works, who's talking down to the foreman. Yes, it creates, could it be done? If that's your direction, certainly that can be my direction, if that's what gets us over the finish line, but that's not my recommendation, not the recommendation of the manager of, or the Director of Community.
You could easily tell DPW director that this person works for DPW and during the summer is going to take direction from the Department of Community Services, right? Reports to the Department of Community Services.
It-
I think that's
It's
confusing.
it's a little, different. It would be similar to our custodians now, like let's say in town hall, who report to somebody in Public Works, but they're not in and of the same union. Could they be another custodian? Yes. If that's what gets us across the line, I think we can make that work. But it would, I think it would help the function of this person if they reported directly up through community services.
What about all the other equipment, vehicles, outfits?
Yeah, that wouldn't be an issue for community services to
Hmm.
take on. They have enough now. They have enough operations where, you know, it's not that this person's going to show up to work and not have the supplies that they need. This can function in community services.
And what
Would you
about
choose to
these?
fund it?
What about the last year, keep camp at department with paid outside cleaning services over 40,000 last year to keep camp environments and park restrooms clean and open through the summer. So we always have, don't we always have porta johns?
Yep.
So what are we cleaning
Park
toilets for?
bathrooms. Park bathrooms that they're cleaning.
Huh?
And that includes porta johns.
Yeah, but
Well, the porta johns have to be cleaned by the porta john company.
the majority of this is in park bathrooms.
But I didn't even think we were opening any of our park bath. We don't have any in Memorial.
Camp
do.
uses the Hart, the
Yeah.
center.
Hart, right.
Yeah,
but-
we opened DeHart, we opened,
Maple Crest when they
Orchard
had-
has restrooms, Borden has restrooms. Then those are open in the summer.
Okay. So I guess I'm just confused about this part. Like, I know we have porta johns. I know how that works.
The Porta
Porta
Johns,
john people come and they clean it out
that's right,
and they replace the equipment inside and then they,
that's right.
so that's not what this 40,000.
No.
So we have DPW and we were paying an outside company to go clean like DeHart
Yes,
bathrooms?
yes,
That doesn't seem right.
because there's a lot of work to be done.
There was a lot
They're
of.
open to the public, they
Yeah.
get
And they
very
get
dirty
gross.
very quickly. Some with general use, but sometimes it's just mischief.
Mischief.
So this $40,000 is not going to be reduced.
It would be, yes. Yeah, we wouldn't,
How much?
we would not have a need for that outside service if we hired.
What-
So it's not going to be
You-
reduced?
So the 40,000 does not include the porta john cleaning?
No. Because they did, the company
Porta
does that.
John company
Is it part of their contract?
How often they come? Like a couple days a week?
Call them extra.
Yeah,
I don't know how often they come to clean,
well,
but I know we have required extra cleanings that's for Porta Johns, but we're talking about the company that cleans our bathrooms.
Yeah, I have no confidence that $40,000 is spent on cleaning bathrooms. I'd like to see that.
But we can provide that.
okay. So that's all the personnel requests. Do you want to rank them and then let us rank them, or how do you want to do it? Unless you'd like us to start?
So, no, I can tell you the most important request on here is the Public Works Office Assistant. And I would say by far. I know the work of that office and I know the work that they're not able to get to on a daily basis. I know the impact this could have on the public and the frustration sometimes that I hear from the public regarding their interaction with the department because of the inability of that department to follow up. So far above any other position that I don't want to say far above, but above any other position that's requested, that one is really important to me, to the department, I think to the public as well. So I would put that one at the top. Going down the list, given the budget impact, I do not recommend the buildings and grounds worker, the roads and recycling worker, and the staff engineer, construction engineer. I think that's work
with you
that's
on
either
those.
being done now or in our department, and maybe we don't get to as much as we want, but you know, the department still does a good job, or it is being subbed out and we may be well served continuing to sub that work out. So I don't recommend the next three. Public information officer and accounting assistant are both valuable positions with a budget impact. They should be weighed more delicately. I think if you're interested, we should continue that conversation. I do not recommend that we staff the recreation custodian. I think that outsourcing has, while certainly we could replace outsourcing with a staff person, and there is some value to that, there's also some negative to that. And there are reasons why I like to outsource work. And I think this is one where outsourcing serves us well.
But if it's not doing it well enough, like at the price,
I think there
get-
could
are
be,
we-
there's an additional benefit to having a staff person, but there are also drawbacks. And in my opinion, weighing those out, I think we are well served continuing to use an outside service.
so
Explaining.
us taking out the public information officer, you think the accounting assistant,
I think if you're interested, we should discuss public information officer and accounting assistant further. I mean, there's a a budget impact to both, and there's a strong benefit to both. And that's a more delicate weight. I feel confident though in the other one, saying that I recommend the office assistant and do not recommend the buildings and grounds worker, roads recycling worker, staff engineer, and recreation custodian.
anybody have any thoughts on that?
Because those are my top three too.
Those are your top three too.
And I think that we should have a further discussion about, unless everybody's in agreement that, you see the value and want to support public information
don't we
officer and
start with
accounting
the,
assistant, but I understand also the budget impact, which we'll get into later, and is all, it's, these are serious dollars and they result in tax increases, and I want to make sure we weigh them out. So I'd like.
Why don't we, everybody okay with the DPW office assistant?
Mhm.
Mr. DeLuca? Not sure.
So I have a question.
Go.
I'm
Right.
sorry. I just have what is it? What is the tax rate right now? What is it bringing in?
Tax rate,
I'm sorry, a tax point.
a tax point has shifted now because of our new ratio. So you're looking at roughly $620,000 as opposed to the old number with our old assessed value of
How much is
320,000.
it?
The new one is what, 620,000?
When a tax point is basically 100 divided by our assessed value. So our assessed value used to be $3.2 billion. And so roughly a tax point was $320,000. Now, because our new assessed value is $6.2 billion, a tax point is going to be the equivalent of roughly $620,000.
$120,000. Okay. And according to this information, we have the 70,000 in the proposed budget and 46,200 in the I'm sorry, 48,000 in the two. So we have about 120 in the proposed budget. Is that correct?
Yes,
According to this?
that's correct.
So this is how I would answer your question, Mayor. I would say, since you already accounted for the 120 in the budget, that's what that would be my maximum go on this. And whoever we can fit in that 120. So if the office assistant for DPW is taking 60, then we have 60 left for something else. That's how I would look at it.
Well, I will add for public information officer, which I think everyone in this room knows that I will lobby hard for. I think the salary is too high. And I also think that could be a part-time position,
Which was that?
the public information
Yeah, yeah.
officer.
Oh, okay.
I think it could be part-time, and I think the salary is too high. Like that's what, like 100,000 a year? I think that's too high.
Wait, I thought it was 70.
No,
Or that's for half a year.
yeah, that's huh.
Oh,
That's
I
full year
see.
though.
Okay. So,
Right, 70 was for a full year.
right.
That will
Oh,
be-
70s for a full year or for a
70
half year?
full Year salary. The funding request is for, full year salary.
9.
So the request is for $49,000, which would be half year salary and half year benefits.
Wait,
That's not on your sheet here.
you mumbled away. I
Oh,
didn't.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
Which
I'm
one?
sorry. I
The,
don't,
yeah, it is. It's at the bottom.
it's on the,
Funding request.
it's on the detail sheet.
Oh, on this sheet, it says 70,000, so I was
On
assuming that
the-
was for 2024.
Oh,
On
yeah,
the
it does.
sheet that you're looking at are full year numbers, because I appreciate that in this year's budget, we can budget half of it, but I don't want to put us in a position where we
No,
get to
no, no.
next year.
We should
And,
budget.
you know, when we budget it, we should think about what's the full year cost, because we're going to pay that
Yeah.
in short time.
So what would be a part-time annual salary or paid consultant for something? If the anticipated salary would be 70 for full year, we talking 35, we talking 28?
I think it depends on how many hours. And I do think it would be less expensive to hire a part-time person than a consultant because those rates will go up.
Yeah, and
30 an hour, 35 an hour without benefits, right? You keep it
Right,
like
saves
25
on
hours
benefits.
a week,
Mhm.
30, 35 an hour. And I think you might be able to get good candidates because there's a lot of people who want flexible work. And when you talk about journalists, there's a lot of journalists who live here. I think we want somebody who
That needs-
lives and knows our community. And
So what should we budget for it is my question. If we were to do, if we were to agree with Ms. Engel and do a part-time, whether it's consultant or a part-time employee, it should be
think
the
it's gonna
same
be
amount we budget
half
for.
the full-time salary. You're gonna
35.
pay them- The hourly wage is going to be generally comparable, and you don't have the benefits. So, and I think that 70,000 is a realistic number for a
So
full-time
35.
position. So I think 35.
Yeah. And could we do it as a contract and say if after a year we see that we don't actually need that much time invested? Is there an opportunity to go back and renegotiate for that part-time?
Yeah, we could. I mean, there are benefits to a contract as opposed to, and this is something where there may be someone who's set up to do this contractually.
Mhm.
Yeah, we should entertain that.
Okay, so let's talk about the accounting assistant in finance. Are you fully staffed right now? Because I thought.
Yes, with the,
remember we
with the
talked about it at
position, with the
finance.
positions that we had starting in 2019, we have all 7 positions finally. There's a person in every seat. So this ask is actually for an additional person to move us from 7 to 8, which would still be less than the 10 that we had when I first started.
And the tasks that this person would do, can you delineate those again?
They would, the primary purpose for their job would be to perform the bank reconciliations for our 24 separate bank accounts. And then once those reports are prepared, they would hand them either to me, the assistant, or the assistant CFO, do the appropriate journal entries in order to bring our books into balance with the bank statements.
Who's doing the bank recs now?
Bank recs now are being done by the auditors.
And how much does that cost us?
We haven't gotten the bill yet for this year, but last year's bill was somewhere around $18,000 or $19,000
For how long? For the whole year?
for the whole year, correct?
Whole year.
So why wouldn't we?
they didn't come in for the whole year to do bank recs though. Didn't they just come in to catch us up at the fourth quarter? Like we brought that, I think in like September this year in the finance committee, we say, oh, let's catch up. We don't want to be late. So we approved bringing in the auditors to help out.
So 18
No, but
wasn't
they've
a
been doing them
year?
apparently.
Early last year to do the bank recs for the previous year.
Right.
This
Right.
year, we were more proactive when we brought them in near the end of the year to do bank recs for the year.
Correct.
Is that a fair? assessment?
Yes.
For which year?
So
For both.
Last year, they did the bank recs for 2022.
Okay.
And late last year, they started bank recs for 2023, and they're finishing that out now.
And bank recs, like I do bank recs
You
every
should.
month. But they're done when? They're done once a year?
No, we
No.
should be doing them,
Should it be
We should
doing
be
them-
That was what we were trying to catch up on and not get behind.
be doing them.
So-
It's difficult to do them at the end of the year because
Right,
as
you forget.
I know.
Reconciliation is.
forget.
I'm not saying what, I know it's not the best.
So if we're spending, say, $20,000 to have the accountants do it, why wouldn't we continue to have them do it? Is it cheaper than bringing on a staff person and just have them do it over the course of a year as opposed to at the end of the year?
Will it still cost 20,000 if they're doing it all year long on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis or no?
Our auditor's interest is not in doing these on an ongoing basis.
Okay.
They'll do it for us because they need to get us to where we want to be, but, and especially given the auditor's deadlines where now they're working on municipal budgets, they'll be working on municipal audits, they'll be working on
Right.
budgets and audits. It becomes difficult then for us to get them in on a consistent basis.
So is there a possibility of outsourcing that work? For example, since we essentially have done that the last 2 years to do the bank recs, is there a way to pay about 20,000 a year to do monthly bank recs?
That's actually one of the things that we first explored before we brought the auditors in to help us with the 2022 bank recs. We called 3 temp agencies looking to bring in someone who can, be employed as an outside temporary employee to get us caught up. And we were unsuccessful in finding any of the 3 agencies that would be able to send us someone with the skill level to be able to do the bank reconciliation.
Well, what about local accountants?
Yeah, that's different. That's a temp agency to have to, we were talking about staffing temporarily to, so we
Right.
can
I'm
not.
talking
fall
about
behind.
like outsourcing.
Like she's talking about a contractor, like a bookkeeper and accounting or something
Right.
where we can just send work to. The same thing we just talked about with public information officers. They're a contractor
Mm-hmm.
out there. That's not an employee, but that we can send things.
Right.
So, yeah, we can certainly call a few accounting firms that are local, that are small, and see if they're interested in doing the work. That's no problem. And then find out what the cost would be.
And then the other 2 tasks that looks like are the primary staff requirements, the things that you wanted for them would be the fixed asset inventory and the accounting. So someone else is already doing
Yeah,
those
so
now.
we'll continue to outsource the fixed asset inventory at $6,000. And, everyone rolls up their sleeves in the office and helps when it needs to, comes time to filing or other, day-to-day operations. Each function has its peaks and its valleys, right? So
Yeah, of course.
Fill in the
being a
gaps.
small office that we are, everyone pitches in when they need to. So, other than having that, a little bit of a release valve with an extra pair of hands in the office, we're getting it done now with the 7
I
people.
feel like
we have.
this is something that could be, I mean, I have an accountant, she's like, works on her own. I can ask her what it would be for somebody, she has bookkeepers who work for her. So it'd be, at least be worthwhile, I think, to get a price from a small, like, local type, not a huge accounting firm, but a small who might be certified to be able to do the bank recs. In order for us to kind of make this decision and have some sort of, because if we're talking about,
Almost 50.
right, almost 50,000 for the year, or we can, see if we can outsource the part of that, because what I'm hearing is that bank recs is the primary thing that this position would do. And that then when they're done with all the bank recs, they'd fill in with journal entries and things like that and whatever needs to be done. So since the department already is fully staffed, I think it makes sense to see what it would be to have somebody do those bank recs, to come in once a month and do them.
Yeah.
Is that fair? To at least get that number so we can compare something. Is that okay with everybody?
Sounds good.
Okay, so, because if we outsource that position, I mean, I may be in favor of an accounting assistant otherwise, but I'd really need that number, like what it could be, how we could save and still get the work done and not be in the position we were in before. And then I would go for a part-time PIO and the office assistant in DPW. Those are my thoughts.
I agree with your thoughts.
Likewise.
Okay. So we need a little more information. Okay,
Mr. Luca, you go with it?
he already said, he doesn't care as long as it doesn't add up to more than 100.
Okay.
That's what I heard. All right, cool. Anything else on that? Guys, no?
No.
Great. Revenue. Let's get some money.
Okay, revenue.
This isn't revenue.
Pull up,
Are you going to show something over
yes, I'm
there?
gonna pull up the revenue spreadsheet.
You're going to give
Is
us
it-
Zoom glasses?
Yeah, they're paper, they're,
'Cause I really have to move over there. 'cause
so,
Oh, I can make it look very large.
Okay.
I may have to go get my regular glasses, my distance ones. Trying to get these.
I have.
You have them?
Takes a while to get used to them.
Cool.
How cool is that?
That's
I
big.
can see it. I
Oh,
can
so you
see
can
it.
see that? I was thinking, Vic, if you can't see that. I'm
All right, so that, we get everything on the screen.
gonna nickname you Magoo.
I still have to squint, but I can see it.
It does, but if we could, Mr. Worry, move it to the, oh no, you have it as a munis, this is perfect. So the tab that we're looking at basically breaks it down the way the state's going to look at our revenue. The tab to the right of it is just is the individual accounts that then aggregate into. So just to run through this briefly, trying to make sure I talk into the microphone. The surplus anticipated is sticking with our cash management plan that says when possible, we use 50% of our fund balance. Obviously, when we finish our AFS, we will be able to confirm that number. But I anticipate that our fund balance will be coming in somewhere between $4.3 million and $4.8 million. So we should be fine there. If we start to scroll down a little bit, the blue highlighted aggregates all the items underneath. What we see is, if we can scroll up just a hair, I'm sorry. The shining star obviously is the interest on deposits and investments. Inflation has arrived. Banks are paying interest rates again. And we've seen our revenue in this account go from being $333,000 in the prior year to $1.4 million this year. You also see an increase in our sewer service fee. That's because we adopted an ordinance that added an additional $20. So when we put this down to the state, they're going to want to see the ordinance so that we can demonstrate that $200,000 is not an unreasonable request. Let me take a look at some of the notes here. Actually, we could scroll down again, and I guess we'll kind of do this and then just kind of go back. So after we get through the revenue and local revenue, if we scroll down a little further.
He's the
Okay, so that they can see them.
Busy up at the tabs.
We're gonna scroll down till we reach state aid. So that's sort of our bad news. We got a slight increase over what we had the year before in terms of energy receipts tax. They're still not funding it the way they were supposed to when they passed the law almost 20 years ago now. And the municipal relief aid, we were told, is no longer going to be provided this year. So they did that to us last year. They had provided us with roughly 80 some odd $1,000. They then told us to take it out of the budget. And then at the last minute, they turned around and said, no, we're going to actually put it back and we're doubling it. My guess is we're not going to be that fortunate this year because I think they're using that money to offset the anchor program. So we're starting out with a $191,400 hole in revenue that we had from the year before. If we scroll down a little further, we see that we have our municipal court shared services, our Milburn shared services for plumbing and electrical. We have now added an expanded South Orange Health Department, and we continue to treat the admin for South Essex Fire Department as an employee of ours until they're prepared to move her over to their payroll. If we scroll down a little further, we've got grants. This is not really relevant to our budget because any grant revenue that comes in has to have an equal and offsetting expenditure. So it typically doesn't matter what the numbers are in here because whatever we're bringing in, we have to pledge that we're going to spend the same exact amount as well. But it should be noted that a significant portion of our health department is being funded right now through grants, and we are going to need to start to prepare for the idea that those grants are going to dry up at some point. We can scroll down a little further, please. These are the items that we need to put in front of the director in order to keep them in place. Cable TV franchise, everyone's cutting the cord. So every year it goes down from what we used to bring in. We've seen the police outside duty down a little from what we've had the year before. Our parking permits were also down a little from what we had the year before. And after discussions with Mr. Worry yesterday, we are putting back in $350,000 for American Rescue Plan. I'll let him explain that a little better. But in a large part, that's to offset the sale of municipal assets. That represents the liquor license we sold. It obviously was a one-time sale. And so we used it last year to balance our budget. It's not available this year because we're not selling another liquor license this year. What we've seen from an overall picture of our revenues, cannabis continues to be a shining star for us. When we first put it into our budget 2 years ago, it was like $212,000. And then last year was $430,000. And now this year it's $610,000. So it's a continuing growing source of revenue for us. Court has pretty much rebounded from pre-pandemic levels. First year of the pandemic, we were probably doing about 242,000. And we're now we're now back up to 309,000. So we're right back at where we used to be before the pandemic hit. Rental registrations is a little bit of an anomaly, and I'm going to take a closer look at it for whatever. Yes.
Mr. Wary, we're not looking at what he's talking about. And it's
There it
hard to.
Rental registrations oddly,
Go up. There, he just talked about cannabis, so.
rental registrations oddly for some reason, and I'm not sure why, seems to go back and forth. We started out a few years ago at 132,000. We went back up to 151. Then we dipped back down to 123. Last year we were back up to 151. So we're going to anticipate the full 151, but I'm not fully confident that this is going to be a revenue line that's going to perform the way we anticipate.
There's that line, because we're not seeing that line.
Okay.
Yes,
So
it
let's
would be under section A,
Try to,
There
try
it
to
is,
get in
there.
sync.
There's the.
right above the Board of Health.
Okay, let's try to keep it in sync. Because it's hard when you're looking at some numbers and you're hearing other numbers, you're not sure what you're hearing.
So yeah, I don't quite understand why there's been this vacillation, and I'll probably have a conversation with Mr. Palmer to see if it's a simple function of, we rented more and then it's an ebb and flow on a rental type of thing, or if it's some other underlying issue that we're going to need to look at. Our certificate of use has declined. We used to bring in
Line you on
$90,000.
For that, CO.
Certificate of use is going to be back down to section
There,
G.
22. Okay,
Certificate of continued use, right? Yep. Right. So a few years ago, we were bringing in $90,000. That has steadily decreased from 90 to 76, 8, we'll call it 77. Now we're down at 73. I'm not certain as to, because I believe that the certificates of continued use are essentially someone's buying a house. It's got to get inspected before they can move into it. And I know from listening to our tax assessor that selling houses and people moving in is not an issue here in Maplewood. So I'm not really sure why that revenue line happens
I
to be
think it
down.
probably has something to do now with the, because you don't need a continued use for an apartment, somebody renting. So when the first apartment building like Avalon Bay first opened up, then they got their CCUs, right? And now they don't get them now. So, and that was,
That would,
there's
yeah,
been a few.
that would explain that, you know what, then I don't need to do the homework now because that would explain the spike. In the year that Avalon Bay opened, we had $90,000 worth of revenue. Life went back to normal and now we're running at somewhere around 76, 73. And so,
Yeah,
that
and the
makes a
other-
lot of sense to me.
Projects are smaller than that.
The recreation revenue might look slightly down, but that was part of an accounting, I don't want to call it trick, but it was part of an accounting process that we did to try and increase revenue in the pool. So we took a look at all the recreation revenue that was coming in to the municipality and anything that was associated with aquatic recreation programs like the Mermaid Camp and that sort of stuff. We lifted out of the municipal budget and we put into the pool budget in order to close the gap that we were experiencing there. And I'm happy to see that the Woodland rental has finally rebounded from its pre-pandemic numbers and is now producing a steady revenue source for us as well. So if we take a look at all of what we've got there, essentially, we have a library tax that we're mandated to put into the budget. It's a third of a mil. This year, it winds up being, 1.7 million and change. That's up from what we had the prior year. So we're seeing an increase in that line of roughly 6.2%. That is mandated by the state in order to make sure that the library qualifies for getting state aid. The balance of that puts us with the municipal levy that we're looking at. And as it stands right now, we're looking at roughly a 4.2% increase in the levy. And obviously that would also be a 4.2% increase in the rate.
Okay,
What is the increase?
4.2.
4.2.
So I know the finance committee asked you to get that down below.
Yeah, this is a draft number that we're still working. That's where we sit today. And there's a few, some discussion items that I have and want to make sure, maybe some further areas to cut, albeit small. We'll go back to with department heads and we have some numbers still to finalize.
What did you plug in for capital fund?
I have three options for you, but as far as the down payment is concerned, it's on $6.5 million.
So if it goes up to,
My goal was 6.5 million. I got down to 7
Right.
billion, so that'll have some effect. The other big one, and we're going to discuss this when we get over to pool revenues, is the pool. We have not included additional support of the pool beyond the $25,000 that we had included last year. As you'll see, the pool is right now is not balanced, so we need to make some adjustments there in order for it to be balanced.
Mr. Colosia, I asked you, I think at one of the previous meetings about the FEMA money we just got, the 600,000.
Yes.
Where is that in here, or is that not in here?
That is not in here. The FEMA money will be realized as miscellaneous revenue not anticipated, even though we were anticipating it because we put in a claim, and ultimately it will go into fund balance. So we know that in terms of regenerating fund balance next year, we have a $625,000 head start.
So if I'm trying to remember what you told us about the payback of our borrowing. Now, didn't we borrow money in anticipation? I guess it was COVID money we borrowed, right?
So COVID money, yes, we lent money to ourselves.
Right.
When COVID first hit, the state came out recognizing that everyone's revenues were enormously down, and they changed the rules. Typically, we're only allowed to anticipate what we brought in from the year before. They changed that to a 3-year average.
Right.
And so we took advantage of that, created a 3-year average. And so that now ballooned up the amount of revenue that we would have, but we now needed to fund that. We funded it by lending the money to ourselves and taking it out of fund balance. And then the state told us that we would treat it as a 5-year emergency appropriation and need to pay it back over the course of 5 years. We're in year number 3. This budget represents the 3rd year of paying back that money. So we'll
But
have it for 2 more years.
But didn't the state tell us we had to pay back something sooner?
So that you're talking about is the FEMA. We also did the same thing the year that Ida hit. We did an emergency appropriation for $1 million to cover all the damage that was done to the township, and we spent out of that money. We then put in our insurance claims, we put in our FEMA claims, and they started to come in. So because we set it up as a special emergency appropriation, we were able again to pay it out over the course of 5 years. So we had it set up that we were going to pay $200,000 for each of the next 5 years. We had just gotten out of year number 1 and paid $200,000, and we had budgeted $200,000 in year number 2. But that's when we sent our budget down to the state, they took a look at our AFS and the budget, and they're like, yeah, you guys collected way too much money in FEMA and insurance. We're not going to let you pay this off over the next 4
Right.
years. You have to pay the whole thing off.
So just work with me on this.
Okay.
Wouldn't there be a justification to realize that FEMA money this year that we just got, the 600,000, in order to pay off this accelerated payment that the state is telling us we have to pay? Because it's not going to recur again next year, right?
Well,
I
we-
understand the concern about using one-time funds in 1 year because we don't have it next year and the bill's
Right.
going to be there, but the bill's going away next year. So why wouldn't we want to use some of that FEMA money to pay off that bill, which would then leave us some other money to do some other things?
So that's already occurred last year with the FEMA money and the special emergency for the Ida storm. We've already completely paid that off. That's not on the books anymore. So the only thing that we're left to paying off is the lost revenue from the COVID. So this is year 3 of that.
Okay.
We could certainly do that if you want. It wouldn't be advantageous to us because
It's going to be
ultimately
next year.
it goes into fund balance anyway and gives us greater flexibility the
Okay.
following year.
I thought we still had a FEMA this year. We don't have a FEMA payment this
No,
year.
FEMA made us, state made us pay off all of FEMA last year.
But we still could make a decision to treat that FEMA money differently than you're
Yeah.
suggesting.
Yes, well, as we first started talking out, we know that in terms of regenerating fund balance, right now, we're anticipating using 50% of our fund balance. But we already know right off the bat, we're $625,000 towards that regeneration.
Right.
So we could certainly add that in and go with the fund balance usage that's going to be greater than 50%, knowing that we've already gotten this FEMA money in. You are
So
correct.
I would just suggest maybe you be creative with that money. Don't touch the library money that's coming in. We need that to balance it.
One, of-
And I think, a nice balance that Mr. Kaloja and I will discuss is, might be realizing that money now, but reducing the amount that we're using from surplus this year so that we still are growing surplus, which is the goal of the township, but it gives us a little more flexibility in this year.
So as long as we're kicking around ideas that are somewhat outside the box, and this is part of the reason why Mr. Worry came with putting American Rescue Plan money back into our budget. We have roughly $1.8 million in American Rescue Plan money. It is required to be spent by the end of the year or the federal government gets it back. We can encumber it for capital projects like storm sewers or sanitary sewers. And if we do, as long as we have a contract in place by the end of September, we have until the end of 2025 to spend that money. And so conversations I believe Mr. Roy had with Mr. Kittner was we're probably looking at like $1.2 million worth of projects, which leaves us with an extra 600,000 that it's going to be use it or lose it. And so it's been plugged into the budget here on the municipal side and on the pool side. But one of the other options that we can consider is anticipating the entire $1.8 million in American Rescue Plan money in our budget and correspondingly increasing the capital improvement fund by $1.8 million. That would then lapse all the money over to general capital. And that would give us the ability to do $1.8 million worth of projects without having to borrow any money to do that, which would take away the deadline that the federal government has given us about September 30th for encumbering funds. And it may be a way to also take a look at not utilizing some of these funds in this budget for operating expenses. Because the bottom line is it's not going to be here. And so when we have a $250,000 revenue line for American Rescue Plan money, we're guaranteeing that we need to raise $250,000 in 2025 in some other way. And usually some other way winds up being taxes. So there's other things that we can consider, but as long as we're talking about options from FEMA's perspective and from emergency appropriation perspective, we can, in theory, sweep that entire $1.8 million over into our capital fund and then use that $1.8 million to fully fund without doing a bond ordinance. We would do a capital ordinance and fully fund the project out of the capital improvement fund. So it's another thing to consider.
But all that is a one-time shot, right? So next year, well, if you
Well,
did your
capital
list,
projects
we
are
would-
one-time
we would just-
shots.
We would just capitalize it next, so it wouldn't affect us next year.
No, because.
No, it wouldn't affect us at all because it would basically be, it's
Project.
But the 350 that you plugged in here would affect us, right? 'Cause-
350 that we have plugged in now is for our 5% down payment.
Right.
If we plugged in $400,000, 350 would be for our down payment, $50,000 would add to our capital improvement fund
Right.
balance. that we can then use. We did that when we did the Wi-Fi project that we did in the one neighborhood. It was a fully capital project. We didn't borrow any money for it. So in theory, we can create a $1.8 million capital fund that would in future years say we don't need to go out and borrow for this project because the funding's available to fully pay for it out of capital fund balance.
What's the downside in doing that?
Yeah.
The
That
downside is
sounds like
that
a
we're
good
currently
idea.
using it to help balance this budget, and right now we're at 4.2% as an increase. So moving it all into capital obviously leaves us with an inability to offset a tax increase
Oh.
that we have here now. That being said, recurring revenues need to equal recurring expenditures, and American Rescue Plan money is not recurring. It's going to be
Right.
gone. So to me, it would seem to make more sense from a very conservative, fiscally conservative perspective. It would make more sense to put it into a pot that says these are one-time projects and one-time expenditures. And so this is going to be where we're putting our one-time revenue that's going to be gone starting next year. But these are, again, policy decisions that need to be made.
Sorry, can I ask a clarifying question? We have 350,000 here, you said, and we have the rest of it in pool. Like, are we using all the 1.8 million in our budget right now, or some of it's just sitting aside that we're going to lose at the end of the year if we don't set up this capital fund, or?
So we are not planning on losing any money. We're taking proactive steps right now. Originally, we had wanted to use 1.8 to fully for engineering projects, right? The engineer now says that he can confidently commit to using, or at least encumbering, 1.2 million of the 1.8 by the September 30th deadline of this year. So that leaves us with the balance $600,000 to do something with if we go this route. And my recommendation was to put $250,000 of that to the pool to make up for lost revenue, and $350,000 of that in the municipal budget to make up for lost revenue. That's
And the rest of it is going to engineering.
Not ideal from a long-term planning perspective,
Right, 'cause
because
that's not
what
gonna-
helps us this year creates holes next
Right.
year. But we need to get this money used. So, and I don't want to leave it all for capital if there's no confidence that we can get it all done with capital. We're confident $1.2 million. So the rest we plugged into the pool and the municipal budget this year to make up for lost revenues due to COVID.
And what about the $900,000 that we got from Mikey Sherrill, Congresswoman Sherrill's office?
That's for a specific project.
It is, it's for
Revenue-
stormwater, that's what I mean, so.
It's for a specific stormwater project that's not considered in this year's capital budget. So what will happen is next year when we
That'll
talk
be
about a
funded by
capital
that.
budget, you'll see a total project cost and you'll see an offset from grant from the federal government.
I just want to add, because I'm your grumpy CFO, right? The sky's always falling as far as I'm concerned. And it makes me nervous because once we strike this budget and once we adopt this budget, this is what we're stuck with. We're not going to be able to make any adjustments to our budget until November. And revenue is not typically one of the adjustments we can make. We do throughout the year when a grant comes in, put a resolution before you, it's chapter 159. But if for whatever reasons we get lucky and the $1.2 million project we think is going to come through winds up becoming a $1 million project, we're out that $200,000 because we've already set aside and struck a budget. So it's part of the reason why I am suggesting for consideration by taking the entire $1.8 million that we can adjust this so that we can leave the revenue stuff in. If we take the entire $1.2 million and increase our budget on the capital improvement fund by the same $1.2 million, we will create a general capital fund balance that can be used at any given time for a capital project. So that if the project does come in at $1.2 million, that's great. We're going to make it a capital project, pay it straight out of there. If it winds up not happening, right, because it came in at $1 million, that's great. We're going to pay for the full $1 million project. And now we got a $200,000 head start on another capital improvement project. So I think putting that kind of pressure on our engineer, on the engineering department to I'm committed to $1.2 million. Like Mr. Worry said, we have no plans on sending anything back to the federal
Right.
government. And this would be the surer way to do that. So that's the reason why I'm kind of.
So the 1.2 million that Mr. Kittner is ensuring that he can spend by September on what projects?
Not spent,
Oh,
encumber by September.
Encumber by
So we
September.
have a little more.
So he would award bids for projects
Yeah,
that would
and
give
they're
time.
shown on the last page of the capital budget presentation. So there's two projects, cured and placed liner for 1.1 million. That's a result of the Red Zone Robotics work looking at piping. And there's an expectation that there'll be $1.1 million of work that come as a result of that. And the other is for a siphon on Maplewood Avenue. That's a $100,000 project. So those two projects will use up.
Siphon on Maplewood Avenue, what?
It's a relining and repair of
Yeah, yeah.
a siphon underneath Maplewood Avenue. So that's 1 million, or I'm sorry, $100,000. So total 1.2 million. Those are the two projects he plans to use that money for.
So that would be in addition to the 6.5 or 7.1.
That's right.
So just so I can understand, Mr. Colosier, he's suggesting we take the ARP money
Yes,
Put it all.
and just put it in our capital budget.
yes, that is correct, that we would,
Yep.
so the mechanism would be that we would anticipate a full $1.8 million worth of American Rescue Plan money so that we know we've now completely swept it off the table. We would reduce the salary and wages for the police department because it's one of the acceptable expenses from the state's perspective for the budget. We would reduce their budget from $8 million down to, $6.2 million, or whatever the case may be. And then we would increase the capital improvement fund from the $300,000 that we have in currently to $2 million. And then we would move that entire $2 million over to the general capital account, which would then, Mr. Kittner doesn't need to sweat out encumbering it by
Right.
September 30th. He can award the contract in October and it would be a fully funded,
And we could cover these things in the capital budget.
pardon me?
I mean, what would we, so we would
we
cover
paying for
these
it?
items in the capital budget in your scenario, we would cover those items. So the
We-
fire department, the heat pump at the fire department would come out of the,
Then I'm
capital
gonna,
improvement.
then I'm gonna need to
Good.
check with our auditors to determine if it then becomes unfettered. Because we're still gonna need to submit paperwork to the federal government that says we used up all our ARP money and here's what we used it up for. They were very specific in the projects that we were allowed to use it for. So heat pumps and air conditioning for buildings did not count. They wanted to see it
Bad
done for
example.
infrastructure.
Just to clarify though,
Wait,
in what you are recommending, the money wouldn't be tied to an individual project, but would be taken in as revenue and would lower our overall need in our operating budget. We could dedicate more money to our capital. That's what. that-
No, what I
So we
hear
wouldn't
him
have to
saying,
borrow in
putting
future years
all
is
of
what
it
I heard
into
you
the
say.
into a general capital budget fund, that any capital project could be spent from, except that they have to qualify for the ARC money with that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe.
But I'm also confused if there's deadlines for when like, how does that work? So you can just move money into a fund and use it anytime, but there's still paperwork that you have to show that you're
Because
using
it's
it for.
technically sort of encumbered by being in that fund, and the encumbrance is what needs to happen by September 30th.
Yes,
Yes, so we don't lose it. And then we use that money for capital projects that qualify for that ARC.
which is our plan right now, right? Mr. Kittner has a $1.2 million project that he's looking to get off the ground. And we're dedicating the ARP money to the 1.2. So it's going to be a cash on the barrelhead
So
transaction.
Mr. Weary is wanting to use some of this money to keep us from going higher in the budget. So
Yes,
therefore put some of it in operating and some of it in capital. Is that what I'm
Yes.
hearing?
I'm, right,
1.2 in capital.
Right.
600,000.
And the 600,000 would
you're both-
keep us
So
from.
you're both basically saying the same thing. Mr. Wary's just saying that some of the money is going to also be used in our budget
Well,
to offset
with
the
Mr.
pool.
Wary's way, there's the possibility of losing some of that money.
no.
No? With
No,
your
Mr.
way, there's,
Mr. Wer-
No.
Mr. Weary's proposal, for lack of a better description. We're not losing any of the $600,000, right? Mr. Weary is saying we're going to use 250 of it for revenue loss for the pool, 350 of it as revenue loss for the municipality. That's going to come straight off the books. That's what I'm going to wind up reporting to the federal government. Everybody's happy. But now we've got $1.2 million sitting in American Rescue Plan money in our bank account, and we're going to need to tell the federal government by September 30th, we either spent it or we're going to need to send it back to them. And therein lies the risk of that's quite a deadline that we're creating for Mr. Kittner, right? Because now he's got to make sure he's got his bid specs together. He's got to make sure that he's got the bid out and that we get him received and that we award it so that we have a contract in hand by September 30th. Because the sky is always falling to me. It's the one time that Mr. Kittner winds up getting lucky. And instead of it being a $1.2 million project, it becomes a $1 million project. Now we've just lost $200,000. So my suggestion is we stick with what Mr. Worry is proposing and use that money. But instead of now relying on being able to award a contract by September 30th, let's put this into the budget now, move it over to our capital fund, which now basically wipes out the September 30th deadline. And when Mr. Kittner's ready to award that contract, we will pay it as a full cash project, same way we would if we were just using art money.
So what's the negative about that? Because it sounds like you're both saying the same thing. It's just how we position it, message it.
Well, this is where Mr. Worry and I would differ, right? To me, from a CFO perspective, it's one-time revenue. ARP is one-time revenue, so we shouldn't be using it for our operating budget.
No, I understand that.
No,
The
no, so
one
that's
point
the
two
only-
million, the 1.2 million specifically, whether we're putting it in, we're saying 1.2 million is going to fund this engineering project and the contracts are going to get signed by September 30th, or we're going to move 1.2 million into this capital funds, just in case we don't get anything signed, we can still use the money for that project, or if it comes in under budget.
Or
Like, is there like a administrative
No.
cost? Is there a difference between
No.
the two different processes of how?
No,
we're
No,
doing
but
it,
The
or
only
why?
place,
difference here is that Mr. Wary wants to use 600
Some of it.
grand. That is a one-time thing.
right, and I want to put all of it into
But
capital.
it's the two things you want to use it for are making up for lost revenue
Mhm.
in the pool and where else?
Municipal's budget. help
Oh,
them.
see, that's where we get like,
Yeah.
In both of them.
Like,
in both
That,
of
I
them.
think he
Both
said,
of them.
I think he said though, the,
This is a one-time, like.
Yeah, it creates a whole next year.
Yeah.
So let me ask, so if we put the 1.2 in capital fund,
Yes.
is there anything that would prevent us from buying the police radio system out of the capital fund as opposed to the capital budget?
There may be, I'm going to need to check with the,
Let's
auditor.
assume it's an okay expenditure.
If it's an okay
See,
expenditure, no.
this is the point. I don't understand why we're pushing Mr. Kittner to do things which are nice to do. But if we have money, why don't we just pay for the things that we already agreed that we want to buy? You know, to do a liner in our sewers is first off, it's a long conversation about what are we doing? Why are we doing it? What's going to be different than we haven't had any of those conversations.
oh, it's only March.
It goes, you know,
this year's-
and let's be honest, there's a lot on the engineer's plate on this capital budget.
Yes.
As far
And
That's because he always asks for
So
something.
I agree that if Mr. Cloje wants to take a look at the projects that are included in this, which we did together.
Mhm.
We looked to pick out some big ones and say, can we put the money in there? And my impression was that we wouldn't be able to absorb 1.2 in this year's capital budget. Right. But I want to understand more about the mechanism that Mr. Cloje is recommending and the projects that we're recommending funding, and then come back to you. So for me at least, I want to talk it over more with Mr. Cloje.
we could get Woodland doors for a little bit. too.
Don't even bring those up right now.
Maybe fix one. We maybe fix one.
Paying cash, will we get a coupon?
We're talking about tomorrow.
We're talking about.
I understand the desire.
What?
My only question then is this, if that's your interest in doing it, and I understand
What?
fully the question, in moving the money into the capital budget as opposed to these two capital projects. I understand that.
I
The
guess.
question that I have left for you then is your comfort level with using $600,000 as revenue split between.
That's where I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean,
I don't love
I
it.
also don't want to like increase the budget that,
Yeah.
add more. So if it leaves a hole in the budget for next year, but maybe, we get tighter on other expenses next year.
So the one thing is, if you're fairly certain that we're going to regenerate the same surplus as we did last year to this year to next year, and that we're going to have roughly $4 million, $4.5 million, and we're going to move some money over. And we already have the 6 from FEMA that you're talking about. And that puts us ahead of the game to use 6 now because we know we have 6 next year
Yeah.
on top of what we think we're going to generate. I mean,
Yeah.
it's speculative, but I'm a little less uncomfortable about doing it one time because
of the other.
of that FEMA money.
We have been doing a good job of regenerating surplus and adding to surplus. This year in the budget, we propose using, I think it's over $400,000 more than we had used last year in surplus. And that's because we're generating more in surplus. We're still not using more than we're generating.
So we have to get that
So-
fourth pot store opened up.
Idea?
Well, we will get more.
Yeah,
because
that-
that revenue last year was only for 1/4 of those other 2
The year.
facilities.
Yeah,
Although,
the revenue since we opened has been steadily increasing by about
Yeah.
$200,000 a year.
yeah,
Revenue.
although they've told us that the competition is pretty stiff now, so it might be going down, but
Delivery hasn't started yet,
delivery's
though.
about
Won't we
to
have
start.
revenue from
we
delivery?
might. No, we won't get any.
We don't get revenue from
sales tax.
delivery?
It's on the
Oh,
purchase.
because it's on the purchase. That's too bad.
Okay, so we're,
Should we talk about this pool budget? Because
Yeah.
the 350 you're putting in there still leaves a gap.
So
And that doesn't include our goal to reduce the fee.
Does not.
We need a number of what that costs.
Yep. And we have been looking at reductions in staff. Ms. Mancuso and I talked at the direction of the Township Committee, reducing staff, especially during the week, both on the pool deck or the patio and the front desk for check-ins.
and what about, Ms. Engel had a thought earlier about private swim lessons instead of, like,
talked about private
thinking
swim
about
lessons.
revenue.
We talked about about parties as well, and I think parties is the easier piece to solve for. The pool lessons, the swim lessons, the issue that we run into is guards to staff them, and especially like during the week, we have well-scheduled
Mhm.
swim lessons. There's some availability on the weekends, but that's when we don't have as much.
How are
availability.
swim lessons?
Those are for those are for the swim classes, for swim lessons. The conversation we were having was a new conversation about private swim lessons, which has come up previously, but never in pool committee, but never beyond more of a,
And both of those things are things we could do, parties, private swim lessons, and also our own swim lessons. Unless we had a contract with a company that said, here's a lease agreement or a rental agreement for the pool for 2024, we couldn't include it in our budget. You know, we can't include a projection of what we hope to collect in revenue. State wouldn't allow it. They want to see something that is what we collected last year.
Right.
Or something where we have.
I get it, but in.
yeah, so
in terms
Mayor.
of Moving
So
forward.
Mayor, moving forward, the pool advisory committee is working on different ways to increase revenue. And sure, they won't probably push the margins as much as we need, but if we do a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. And also as we lower fees, we hope that we'll have greater membership to make up for it so that the future will be good moving forward. It's just this year should be the
Yeah,
hard year
and last year and the year before.
and last year and the year before. And we're opening late this year too, so that'll also impact things.
Right. Are we still on track to open late or are we on track to open on time? Do we know the
I
answer?
think we'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, everything's waiting
Weather
till
has been
tomorrow morning.
favorable. I'll leave it there.
Okay. Yeah,
Because there is some revenue, like the end of year school parties used to have parties at the pool and stuff. So we're going to lose. I mean, they're already planning that right now and they don't think our pool's going to be open. So there could be revenue loss also because of the late that we weren't thinking about.
right.
And we're still in the last conversations I heard, we were still staffing up for Memorial Day. So there's a gap this year also that is not a regular gap where we won't have any revenue, but we'll have expenses.
Okay. Is that all on the pool?
I think we should go through the pool revenues.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's switch over there.
Do we pull something up? The revenues. I feel like I just had an exam when I come up. Brain's working hard. No. I don't think so. No, I got
Cancel.
They were gonna start talking about stuff, but time wasn't of the essence. And what are you going, pool revenue?
Pool.
Revenue pool, here it is.
All right, so just to walk us through, how we did pool revenue wise, we had our membership fees reduced. That is inclusive of the $25,000 that we budgeted in the municipal budget to help offset subsidizing some memberships for families that were in need. So we've seen a reduction in our membership fees. We've seen a reduction in the amount of guest passes. That wasn't volume related. That was a policy decision to reduce from $20 to $10. So that brought us down less revenue because we didn't really pick up the numbers we were hoping to find. We're looking at the lessons that were somewhat smaller also. Our rentals were also off. Our concession is pretty much a fixed because of a contractual agreement. One of the two, there's two lines in here that we will see next. And again, this was some creative accounting to try and push the pool over to being self-liquidating and to also help offset the deficit that we were dealing with this year. And as I had mentioned earlier, the first one is recreation programs. Any of the recreation programs that historically dropped into our municipal budget as revenue, if it was aquatic related, we pulled it out of the municipal budget and we applied it to the pool so that they would have that revenue in the pool instead. And we also added an additional item for interest on deposits and investments. We right now sold a $33 million bond, and part of that bond was for the $1 million resurfacing project that's generating interest for us. So although it's in here for $19,000 in the 2024 budget, we're going to pay our $1 million to our contractor. And when we do that, we're not going to have this as a source of revenue any longer. Surplus is being budgeted conservatively again at our policy of when possible, 50% of what we have in terms of fund balance. The 250 is to make sure that we're not going to lose the American Rescue Plan money. So Mr. Worry plugged that in here. And that produced total revenues of almost $3 million. We have expenditures that are almost $1.5 million. In fairness, we are dealing with a debt service that is significantly increased over what we had prior to this, because we are now fully funding both the pool filter system from a few years ago and this resurfacing project. And so we sold both those notes back in July and converted them into permanent financing. And so that is picking up a significantly larger debt service, because prior to that, we only had to pay the interest of what we borrowed. Now we have to pay principal plus interest. So that was our first spot that saw a significant increase. We were looking at a much larger deficit just a couple of days ago. Mr. Worry had plugged in now the American Rescue Plan money. Last year we used roughly 125,000. This year we're plugging in 250,000, again, to make sure that we're not going to have to send any of that back to Washington. We are seeing some expenditures that are increasing both on salary and wages and in operating costs or other expenses. That is predominantly, from a salary and wage perspective, that is predominantly due to the minimum wage increasing. And it's not just, the new minimum wage is going to $15. All the people who were ahead of them because they were making more than minimum wage are being made whole, so that it's not that, I was getting paid $15 last year and now the new minimum wage is $15, but I've been here for 2 years. So why am I only getting the $15? So they're getting moved as well. And so that's part of the reason why we're seeing the escalated costs in the salary and wages for the pool. And then the other expenses are essentially just trying to catch up with what we actually have in place. Ms. Mancuso could probably speak better to any of the larger items that might have increased that have something to do with, perhaps awnings or, rather than capitalizing, she may have expenditures in place for tables or whatever. We would be finding that in our expenditures. But if you look at our other expenses, it's really only gone up by about $35,000. The main driver for our additional costs are salary and wages, moving up almost $50,000. And the real killer for us is the fact that we've gone from $273,000 in debt service to $439,000 in debt service. And that's really what has hit us hard. We are in the third year of the deferred charge because we did the same thing on the pool side. We took a 3-year average and then we wound up selling a note to ourselves. So the $124,540 is the third year of paying that back. It'll exist for another 2 years and then it'll drop off starting in the 2027 budget.
Will the debt service be the same next year?
The debt service, I believe, goes slightly up for the first 3 years, and then the table starts to have it go down.
So the answer is yes, it'll go up again or about the same.
I will get that answer for you, for sure, but from memory, yes. Not significantly, though. I mean, if we're looking at the debt service right now, as roughly $439,000, it might be an additional $20,000 in principal. And obviously the interest is going down, so it's not going to be a big number, but yes, it may go from 439 to 450, and then it may go from 450 to 455, and then by the fourth year, we see it start to tail off because we're starting to move into the prime time for refunding bonds and going out and getting a better interest rate.
Can I ask a question about the creative accounting, about using aquatic rec programs from the rec budget to the pool budget? You're talking about like swim camp and Makos, I'm guessing. I'm a little surprised that money wasn't always in the pool budget because the expenses all come out of the pool budget for those for
Like
those.
the mermaid camp and things like
program.
that, because those were the new creative things that Missy came up with in the last 2 years or so.
Mermaid camp has been around for a while.
It has
And
been.
it's always been at the pool and it's staffed by the pool lifeguards and the chemicals. I'm just curious
it
about
comes
And
why.
the
Why?
revenue,
I don't know why it's
and the
always
revenue's always been realized by the municipality. So that's what we changed this year, and I think moving forward, because it's more equitable, like you said, Committee Woman, it's related to the pool, it's staffed by the pool.
Costs are coming out of the
expenditures are
pool,
coming
so the
out of
revenue
pool.
should have been going into the pool. It's just.
But that also, recreation has, some of the expenditures have come out of there's a line in the pool budget for recreation programming. And there's a line for that also in municipality, and sometimes they weren't very delineated in terms of where it wound up getting charged. So while we have it set up that as if we're paying the entire pool and all the recreation programs associated with it out of a budget line item, I would venture to guess that if I ran a detailed report, we would find that some of those expenditures were actually charged in the recreation budget instead of the pool budget. Now, in terms of trying to make it self-liquidating, that might have also been sort of on purpose to not overexpend the line item. And we're going to charge it here over in recreation in order to try and get the pool to break even. So that's certainly a possibility. But to your point, the money's being generated by the pool. It should be realized by the pool. And so this is what we're seeing for the first time this year, and it'll be a practice that continues. What will drop off is the interest, because we know that once we pay our $1 million, we're not going to have a large sum of money sitting in the bank that's generating interest for us. But that's going to be 2025's problem. 2024, we can count on the revenue coming in.
We have a $200,000 shortfall, even plugging in the ARP money, right?
Yes.
So how are we going to close it?
And that's without reducing fees.
Correct. How are we going to close it?
I continue to look at the municipal budget for, it's going to be funded in the municipal. There's not an opportunity for us this year to realize, that I'm aware of, to realize additional revenue in the pool. And so, and our expenses, we will work on, we are working on, there will be some modifications, and with lowering some staff, but it's not going to be something that solves $194,000 shortfall. So that means support from the municipal budget.
And just to clarify, sorry, the reason for this bigger it feels like a bigger shortfall this year is because of that debt service and minimum wage going up. And some lines were decreased, like, swim lessons, we talk about the timing of when they're actually running. They weren't full this year because
And some revenue going down. So membership revenue just generated less last year than it did in prior years. And so this year we're left to anticipate less because of that.
Thank you.
Could you show the revenue from the, what are we calling it? User fees? user fee?
user fees.
850 something, was that? 852. So if we wanted to, 852, if we wanted to reduce the fee by 15%, we'd have to put 100,000 and 120,000 in there.
And depending,
Roughly.
we should also talk about the $25,000 and if we want to
Right.
use that for reduction, or if we still want to use that for full membership or full use.
We talked about using that line as the subsidy, and then we were going to work with the health department and the school guidance counselors to figure out how to get the real vulnerable populations memberships. But, right, didn't we talk about in the health and community service meeting that we weren't going to put the $25,000 in for assistance? It was just going to go into offset membership fees, because if we lower the membership fees, it does the same.
Everyone for
Yeah.
the,
Right, in hopes of getting more members. Yeah.
So lowering the membership fees plus having 25,000, that's what you're suggesting, right? Lower the membership fees plus having 25,000.
I mean, that's what I would think, but I think we had decided as a group that we weren't going to leave the $25,000
that.
in.
Okay.
You
And
don't,
I
it
don't-
might have been after you were off.
Yeah, you kicked me off so you can.
I
make
didn't
the
kick you
decision.
off.
I got it.
didn't
I
kick you
understand.
off. I wanted you to stay.
I understand. You kicked me off so you could do that. So, okay, so if we just, let's assume we're going to keep the 25 as Ms. Engel is suggesting. We need, in order to reduce it 15%, we need 120,000. 10%, 80,000 more, right? 85,000 more.
so we're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, but, we did make a commitment to start this. We said it was going to be.
No, I
a
know.
five-year Process,
Just saying,
so,
trying to find the money.
uh,
And our municipal budget continues to get refined. So,
Yeah.
We'll continue to look for ways to do that.
And we will have problems this year and next year with the revenue side, because if we open late and our revenues are down this year because of that, we're going to be in the same hole again next year, right?
We hadn't discussed changing the user fee for this year based on what may be a late start.
Right.
We're not talking about a discounted fee for 2020.
Wait, so we're not talking about a discounted fee if we're opening up?
The late
No.
start. What might be the late start? Because
not
you're
sure.
looking at a few weekends early in the month.
only 2 weekends.
Mm.
Not weekdays, 2 weekends. So we weren't talking about reducing the fee. I don't remember that talking about reducing the fee. But let's assume we're going to open Memorial Day. I would be interested in still putting some money in to reduce the fee, because I think unless we start it, all we're doing is talking about it.
I agree.
I appreciate that, Mr. DeLuca. Thank you.
Yeah, but we also don't want to raise the tax rate over. Definitely, I mean, we wanted it down
Yeah,
like
but
Close to
Yeah,
three.
but
But a lot of conversations had by people who were former members of the pool, as well as people who've recently moved in the community, have been like, we joined the pool if it was just not that expensive.
yeah, I get it.
So it could also be offset by an increase of membership.
Yeah, but that's a question mark. We
It
can't.
is.
and we won't know until we try it.
Right.
Exactly.
I know. I'm not opposed to
Yeah.
it. I'm just
So-
pointing out that we also need to focus on keeping the tax rate down, like that was our goal.
But I think Mr. Weary, if we instruct him to find $300,000 in the main budget and maybe some other things that we want to earmark, you'll be able to find that.
God, I just heard Donald Trump in my head. All
Okay,
I'm-
wait a minute.
What? Don't say that in front of Vic.
The $900,000 that we just got for the sewer, what do you think that is? That's an earmark,
True.
right? Because we had talked about putting some money in for just an earmark. We talked about putting some money in to start the implementation of the master plan.
We should go through some notes.
Right.
We have a notes tab here.
Okay.
And what you were
Yeah.
shared with, because we did put into this budget a lot of the things that you had recommended,
Okay.
maybe all the things that
So
you
see that? Well,
So-
Did you share this with us? Do we have?
I shared it with you. but,
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not on my site.
You want to go to the notes?
Yeah, yeah, we can go to the notes tab. And then,
At
and then we
this
have to
tab
recap.
here?
And then I have a few small discussion items.
Okay.
So I just want to, be conscious of the time. So here's I might stop sharing that, but
Conference room, all lowercase, right? No.
all right. So
No, you put Maplewood staff.
So as for changes, we created a line for streeteries, which we discussed,
Yes, Liz.
and that was less than was
I'm sorry.
originally. We created a line for streeteries in the public works budget. That was a lot less than we had originally considered because we were able to reduce the overall cost there. We unfortunately had to remove the municipal relief fund from the state. That was $191,000. Let's see,
What are you looking at? The notes tab?
I'm looking at the notes tab, which there's some stuff in here that's,
Come on.
I'm just looking for the items that
Yeah,
were
it
specific
closed up on me.
from request. We had, we had reduced the funding for Soma TV. We had reduced the crossing guard funding because originally the budget had considered outsourcing all of it. We had chosen what was option 2 on what I presented to you, and so that was crossing guards.
Did we ever vote on that?
The consensus was there a vote?
No.
I
there was
don't
no
think
vote.
we
No,
voted.
No,
There
we
was
never
not a
voted.
vote. There was not a vote.
No.
The consensus was that option 2 seemed to be the more
Yes.
reasonable.
Where was that consensus? I'm serious.
That's my understanding from the TC. That's my
Yeah.
understanding from the.
I thought the consensus was higher
We
to.
talked
do-
about
You
it.
may have talked about it at the finance committee, but I don't think we ever brought it
No.
back here.
We talked about it at the finance committee and then I think
Yeah, we.
it was sent in
Oh,
around.
we
I
talked.
circulated it
No,
and
we
then
didn't bring it back.
But we haven't
I
talked about
circulated a
it.
memo.
No, we
and
haven't
I
talked
spoke with
about it.
individual members. We can.
We can
maybe
talk
now's
about
the
it right
time to
now.
Talk about that. Yeah,
I'm one you never spoke to. I
Okay,
never,
good.
otherwise I wouldn't be
fine,
saying this.
fine. What was your preference?
But I'm okay with option 2.
Making things
There you go. He just likes to make that other point.
No, I just don't want,
That's
don't
fine.
want assumptions made.
Yes, yes.
No,
The-
no assumptions. We all dreamt that we talked about it already as TC.
All right, so I chose option 2, and that was for keeping it in-house, but making adjustments to where the crossing guard program could run more effectively.
Right.
That had some effect on PEOs as well. We've included that in here. We included $14,000 for master plan. That $14,000 is what we had included in the 2023 budget. So we have that in the 2024 budget now as well. And you can opine if you think that that's
I
the,
think it should go up some.
To the what?
Master plan?
Master plan
Master plan
implementation, these are
implementation.
consultants, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What did you have?
25, 20? I mean, this is also, what.
But there's a
when I
lot in
was
them.
thinking about it, there is also a certain capacity for how much we
Correct.
get done this year. And so I didn't want to put, this is operating money. I didn't want to put
I
everything.
think
here.
25 is okay.
for this
Yeah,
year?
because I
You
mean,
Get anything for 14.
I don't know. I think we tried to go for 14. Why are we trying to go for more? A lot of the stuff in the master plan can be implemented
By the
without.
And you don't need to spend money, but if you don't have it in the budget, then if something is important for you to do, you won't have it.
So gets put off to 2025. And then you do other stuff that doesn't cost money.
Or is there a number between the two that makes?
I'm just trying to go the opposite.
We find more grant queens.
5.
We find grant
Yes.
queens to find us money for funding it.
Fine, you want to keep it 14, keep it 14. Something should be in there. I think 14 is way too little, but go ahead.
15. There, it sounds more like 25.
Any other input?
You fine with 15?
I was fine with 14. I
See,
got-
fine with 14. Ms. Engel?
Whatever you, 14, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Fine.
I was fine with
14.
14.
15
15
sounds
is it?
better.
There was Soma Two Towns. This should be discussed further. There was, it had been funded in this year's, in the 2024 budget at $35,000.
Soma two towns.
Soma Two Towns. In previous years, we had used less than 5,000. And last year, this was funded at either $15,000 or $20,000. I wasn't aware of a specific reason why that increase was needed in this year. So I had recommended to bring it down to 15,000. That's still 3 times more than we had spent in previous years.
Fine with that.
Yeah.
And so if no one is aware of a specific need for it to go up to 35, we put it at 15.
Why wouldn't we go even lower? Like 10? I'm
We are
just
doing-
saying.
We are doing a mailing for the home sharing.
Okay.
I don't know what that's gonna cost.
I mean, it's a lot of people in the thousands, but I'm trying to think when we did.
Usually a mass mailing? Is that just to seniors? or to
Last
everybody?
mass mailing,
65 and older, or 60 and older.
I mean, it's going to be over
And typical plate, so
5,000.
it's good.
Yeah.
I want to say that the last one I remember a number on was for when we changed recycling.
Mhm.
And I can find the number for that and approximate it.
Yeah.
I will say that I was told that the coordinator for Two Towns for All Ages did not even ever know what the budget amount was. So I'm not sure that there's been a real robust thinking of what the money could be used for,
Mhm.
because they never thought they had any money.
And I spoke with, now they are under the Department.
Okay, we don't have to tell her. That works.
They're now under the Department of Community Services. I spoke with Ms. Mancuso about it today. She's aware of the budget line. She will make Soma Two Towns aware of the budget line. Even with them being aware, I can't imagine that they will
Mhm.
spend 3 times as much as they had
Yep.
in previous years. And let me see, on the expenses side, nothing that's no, that's everything. All right, so we want to go to capital.
Yep.
All right.
All right. So that's this, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Line here, but it's not.
Should we go to the departments that are not engineering and public works?
No, I mean, the gross majority is engineering and public.
I know,
works.
that's
If you go
why I
to-
was-
I mean, let's just start, right?
Well, I know there's like community development has, it still says 3 vehicles, wasn't it 2?
So you'll see, this is their original request, and then if you go all the way over to the right, if you go all the way over to the right, there's an admin recommendation. I had started with 6.5, so it still says 6.5. That was my goal. If you look all the way at the bottom, we got to 7.1, and then there's so it's 7.1, 8.0, and 9.1. We'll go over that. I didn't change any of the actual descriptions, but the vehicles is now 2 vehicles.
Right.
We'll go over that.
Right, but is the number changed along with that?
Yes.
Um,
So would you
Can we
like?
just go through the ones he said no to?
Yes. First, so vehicles we'll talk about at the end, but the first one, finance, vehicle assessor, agreed that the vehicle the assessor is driving around in is in need of replacement. I have discussion that I need to have with now the finance department, but I believe we can have a car available for their use. That doesn't require a new purchase, so that's not recommended in the 6.5. The police department discussed this with the chief of police, and we agree $1 million for the radio system. This is at the useful life, anything less. And, we're just pushing a problem into future years. At this point, we've kind of gone to non-discretionary spending. So $1 million for that is we'll just go through the first column
$1 million is for the radio system.
for the radio system.
And
Yep.
that's it.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it. Public Works went over all this with Mr. Kittner. So, he is on board, maybe disappointed, but on board with working with even the 6.5. So we've got the street sweeper made it. Bucket truck got cut. Sewer jet truck made it. It's a useful, very necessary piece of equipment. We cut the leaf vac. We were able to get leaves pickup last year without it. Ventrac for the snow and salt spreading. We were able to do the work last year without it. Kept the light tower. We end up trying to scrape together to borrow them every year. So that is a useful piece of equipment. Took out both SUVs, the mower, the electric message board. In fire department, $300,000, kept that. That is work that has to be done. It's very necessary. Kept AC upgrades because end of useful life. Mini splits in PD, end of useful life. And those are things that, we can't have go out without funding to replace. Town hall mini split, kept that. That's in the server room. Removed the heat pump for the fire department on Donnell. We can do that in a future year. And so we removed that and kept the amphitheater electrical, just because if that goes out, especially last minute, that's the kind of problem where we could, it could be days to fix it. So that's out.
So wait, you cut that or no?
Nope, that's in,
Is it
$20,000. Yep, yep. I'm sorry. It is in the budget, $20,000 for electrical upgrades at Memorial Park. Any questions on Public Works? All right, going down to engineering, road reconstruction. This is an area where we cut it almost in half. And we can discuss that, but I think that's something where we will get complaints from people who didn't make the list, and we'll have to pave in future years, but there is, some tolerance on roadways. So that's cut down to $1 million. General improvements, these
Wait.
are, go on.
For the road program, one thing we don't do at all here, and I don't know if it's because Paul doesn't believe in it or not, maybe we can talk about it tomorrow. Because engineering public works meeting is always so short, we could fit other things in. We can maybe talk about, I forget what it's called, where to extend the life of a road by a couple years instead of redoing it and they.
They'll
put
do
that-
overlays,
No, it's not what it is. It's like putting down
like where you put down
gravel
black
and then.
gravel. Yeah.
Coating.
Seal
Oh, you
coating.
can do seal coating, which is generally just
I don't
on
think that's what
the
it's
the seams and cracks. I haven't seen
I don't
this
think
on
that's
municipal
what it is.
roadways, but you can put down like tar and stone, like tar and chip, but I
There's,
haven't
like,
seen that
stone-
here.
Yeah, we used
Yeah.
to put stone and like, we used to do that.
Right,
Yeah.
and we
That-
haven't done that. I'm just wondering
I
why.
don't see that on
Used-
municipal roads much.
Right, it was used to be done to extend the life roads before you have to,
And it didn't do all that much.
No.
No, because
And it ends up getting worked
by
off
cars.
Well-
relatively quick.
okay, never mind, go ahead.
Right.
Hey, I'm throwing it out there.
We do overlays. Well, they will put down an inch of pavement over a bad road that extends it 3 to 5 years. All right, so miscellaneous improvements keep. We got rid of civic house improvements, so that's roof and parapet wall. Woodland
So
doors.
just on
Wait,
Civic House,
Civic House?
we have like 500,000 for the Civic House. Is there anything, can you have a conversation with them about seeing we have 500,000 from previous bonds.
Okay.
Right,
Can you see if there's anything that can be done? Because it just seems like we're doing nothing.
right.
Because we're waiting for everything and sort of perfect is ending up that we can't get anything good over there.
Yep. Yeah, we can identify the projects that are most immediate and address those with previous money. Woodland doors is in here. Woodland siding is not. That was $250,000.
Wait, Woodland Doors is in here for,
Woodland doors is
280?
in,
Not the siding.
280,000, but not the siding. We had talked about
so
removing.
is that the restoration of the doors? Or,
That, it depends.
Installing
It depends.
prefab.
Or
Right-
wishful
right now,
thinking.
we've-
We haven't
with-
discussed- we have
with
to
what
really
we expect
discuss.
this to be, we've
We're
bid this
discuss
out
it
twice and
tomorrow.
haven't
So it's-
received something back. But that money could be used for other replacements, like a prefab.
yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be that as much as you have in there.
The reason we rejected the first two bids was because it was
Yeah, they were
way over.
ridiculous.
280 is a number that we can,
Well,
we can
yeah.
definitely fit prefab doors into.
I wouldn't be in favor of getting rid of the side, taking off that siding. First of all, I think his estimate is high because he's anticipating something that's not going to happen. You rip it off,
Yeah.
make repairs, and you paint it. It's not $250,000. Okay, move on.
Bergdorf basement, we can do it for less. Alarm panel replacement, we found ways to do it for less. Greenhouse heat pump, that is still in there, and the heat pump, the heater went recently. It was damaged, so they don't have a heater.
Right, did we get insurance for that? Did that ever get applied for insurance?
This was just recent, so.
I know,
you
and I asked Paul last month.
Yeah.
About applying for insurance for that
Yeah, we
because
could-
it was like a tree fell on it.
No, this was due to water damage.
Who?
Water damage?
No, I think.
There was a roof
Roof
issue
thing.
there as well, and yes, we submitted for. I don't know where that is with insurance, but we submitted for it. This is more recent, and we had talked about needing it, but now it's, critical.
Well, please make a note to check on the insurance.
Sorry?
Please make a note to check on the insurance so we can help pay for the repairs with insurance. Okay, Maple Avenue.
All right, yeah, reduced a little
Terrace.
bit about what to spend on the pool, for the bathrooms and exterior paint and patch. Kept Maplewood Ave drainage, or Maple Ave drainage improvements.
Okay, it's Maplewood, it's Maple Terrace. That's why we're all confused.
All right, let me change this here. I'm sorry.
That's okay, just as we keep
Maple
trying to say.
Terrace drainage improvements. Um, Springfield Ave obviously kept, ADA ramps kept, traffic calming, reduced to 250,000. Removed EV chargers for town hall. We have 2 currently. And we only have now 2 or 3, 2 plug-in vehicles for them. So even if we double that with vehicle purchases this year, we'll be able to support it with what we have. In-house engineering, we discussed, keep that to heart. We removed sanitary sewer improvements at various locations. He's going to, it'll be covered in 2305. So there's utility repair improvements, which went up from 150 to 225. So that's going to move up that line. This one, we had to increase. This is environmental improvements. We had an issue at Hilton Library that requires additional funding. That just came up recently, so we've increased that number. And then deleted everything below that. Safe routes to school, that project's not going to be ready until next year. Sewer siphon fees, we put into another line, that same one, 2305. Air conditioning for the TC room removed. Maple Crest Park is still in there, but we have money from previous for it. Dredging is removed in the first round. You'll see it in the second and third. And electric jitney buses stays. We have a grant money for that. And then 3 vehicles is now 2 vehicles. We're looking for electric, so they're still expensive, probably about $50,000 each. I know, yeah, I know. Well, full electric
Yeah,
are expensive.
Cheaper than that.
depends on how big of a vehicle you're looking at.
And smart board for electronic review, we need that because the state's moving to electronic plan reviews. So that gets us to 7.1 in that column. And you can go through your sheets and let me know, if you want anything added, but you've got some options there for at least priorities, what you could add in the next round or going up to 9.1.
I'm sorry, is it just me or are you getting harder to hear?
I might be getting harder to hear.
Yeah. We're all getting tired.
Sorry.
So I'd like to put on the table that we go back to increase engineering 2401 municipal road to 1.2,
Okay.
and that we include the woodland siding 250, and that we include the dredging of the east branch of the river 250. If we don't do anything with the river, we're going to lose all kinds of leverage we have with the residents there
Mhm.
to convince them that we need them to pay for the river walls.
All right.
We
So
got to have some skin in the game. And I just think the 1.2 is, it allows us to do maybe another road and a half. And the 250, the woodland siding, if we're going to do stuff with the doors and it's all right there, it gives us a chance to open up those windows. So that would be my recommendation, is to put the 700,000 back in.
I think that would be well worth the money for the siding because that'll make a huge visible improvement in that
Mhm.
and make it even more rentable probably. Just saying.
Is this a good time to say that the Woodlands is a great place to rent for an event?
Yeah,
It
especially.
is. I've held one there.
Especially once we,
It is great, a great place to
Regardless
rent,
of the
easy
time
to
of
work
year.
with.
Space for everything.
because I'm
other
sure there's
requests
millions of
for-
people watching.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said about the pool bathroom family,
we're able to do it for a little bit cheaper. Still going
but
to,
it's still gonna be in
Still
there.
in there.
yep, still in there.
All right, so we didn't get it down as much as we want.
That's
Looks
okay.
like we added it.
We added
No,
to it.
no,
Yeah,
you
and at
added
the
it.
same
We're
time.
good at adding money to budget.
Yeah. We've been adding where we, it's a theme.
Supposed to be subtracted.
Okay. We'll find ways. Other than those 3 items, is there anything else we want to discuss for consideration to be added back to the budget?
The Maple Crest Park playground. So we have we have 500 around
Yes.
in OSTF funds.
Yes.
And then the project, something around a million. That's
Our
crazy.
grant application, their max is they said their top range was 750,000. We applied for more. than that.
Right, that one. So that's the one we're waiting for. And hopefully then we won't have to add anything to it. So it's right.
We would likely have to adjust the project, but we don't anticipate adding to funding already available. Because we only have a 25% match for that.
Okay.
All right. So then for the 3 additions that were recommended by Committeeman DeLuca, is there an agreement for those 3 to be added? So that is moving paving up to $1.2 million, adding back in woodland siding, and adding back in dredging of the east branch of the Rahway.
Sounds good.
I'm fine with 1 and 3. I'm not married to siding, but I'm not so against it that I would be like, oh, shut it down.
And I think he's over it.
All right, so I'll add those 3 items back. Going at the bottom there. OSTF, which we discussed, but there was some concern at the end of the last meeting about how this was going to balance by removing the repair and restoration of the Memorial Park Bridge. Solve that issue. We have enough money in this year's OSTF budget to fund all of these projects.
All the other stuff. Okay.
I had it in the bottom ARP, but obviously that discussion continues.
I thought we were going to put the design in the Memorial
For the
Park Bridge.
yeah.
Didn't do that this year so that we can go out next year.
Yeah, that's.
We have money we can do that.
I just think we should throw something in there for design. I don't know what it would cost, but this way they can, they can,
20%, so that's about
do something
$60,000. Right? It's usually design's about 20% of the hard cost.
We have enough money to do that.
Okay.
Yep. Right. I have a few discussion items. I'm going to need more than this to cut the budget down, but
Okay, you gotta wake up,
July 4th,
speak up,
fireworks.
wake up, speak up.
In this year's, we had planned for Juneteenth fireworks funded in the budget and July 4th fireworks. Juneteenth is June 19th.
I know it's.
We're running them a couple weeks apart. And I also think about, are you watering down what either one of those events could be if we just had one event? And I think the Maplewood is hosting Juneteenth this year. I would
Right.
recommend that we have Juneteenth fireworks, Juneteenth celebration, put all our effort and funding into Juneteenth and not have 4th of July fireworks as a separate event.
And not have 4th of July
Fireworks and festivities is a separate
anything
event.
for 4th of July.
yeah, I disagree with you.
That's
Yeah,
like
you're
a
gonna
whole
get,
lot.
there's gonna be a lot of pushback from the community on that. It's already
Want to
happened.
do it at a different, you want to have them a couple weeks apart?
Yeah, we can't take, yeah,
Yep.
I don't think we can.
They represent different things. And I think for cohesion in the community, we need to do both.
It would be nice if if South Orange would share 4th of July with us as well as Juneteenth with us. Like if we did
Yeah,
Juneteenth, they
did we
did
get
July
any money
4th.
South
We
Orange?
just trade.
We just trade years, yeah.
No.
They
for
only,
June.
we only trade for Juneteenth, not for 4th of July.
No, not.
Not doing.
I know, they won't do July.
Only They host, we host, they host.
I understand that. I'm saying they never do 4th of July.
No.
Mm-mm.
That's why we got the double
It's a
fireworks.
non-starter with them.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying they could contribute. They could be a nice neighbor and contribute since they use our 4th of July. Have we ever asked South Orange to contribute?
Many
to the
times.
4th of July?
Many times,
It became, it was,
Recently?
yes, last year.
many times, recently, many times.
Right, especially
All
when the
right,
conversation came about Juneteenth. going
One of
later.
Wait, I have a question just when we're talking about fireworks, just because last year it rained. And so like I know when it rains, all of a sudden you have this contract for fireworks that we're going to do another time. And I think that's part of the reason why South Orange ended up having the extra fireworks in July because it rained on Juneteenth last year. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh.
Like,
I guess.
is there a
they
contract where we
provide
can hold them
fireworks.
till next year? Do we have to use them this year?
Right, can we just carry it over?
They don't want to do that. And the
No.
reason is they've got a full schedule next year.
Right.
Yeah,
You
they've
start
got the
pushing
lot.
this
Yeah.
year's July to next year, they're not saving any money. So they usually require like a 3-month for rescheduling.
For
Juneteenth.
the library, if it rains, we can use the fireworks for your library opening.
So what are the activities for
Year's.
Juneteenth that
Won't
we
be open.
pay for? I mean, other than fireworks, Do we do fireworks on Juneteenth just because of the Fourth of July fireworks? Is that where they came
Independence
from?
Day, as Black
Yes.
Independence Day.
Yes.
We do, 2 years ago, there was a stage, bands, DJ,
It was an entire
food.
program. We had
Right.
food, the
Right.
stands and
And who's
chairs
ever
and.
gonna-
But the food was,
There
the
was a
food was,
buffet.
food was given away.
Yeah, it was free food.
Yeah, I don't know in South Orange the food is given away for Juneteenth.
It rained last year.
No,
I
the
think.
first time we did it.
Oh,
I think we need to, have a conversation about, there is a committee, who's the
You and I.
liaison? No, I think it's.
No, we're
Wait,
making,
and I guess who's like, if this used to be, is this arts and culture, or this is rec, or who actually
Well,
does this event?
that's what I just.
Yes. It's arts and culture.
Arts and culture.
Okay, so whoever it
arts and
is,
culture.
there's two liaisons. I think it's Mr. Daffis
And me.
and Ms. Crape. Ms. Engel and I are July 4th. I think there has to be a conversation about Juneteenth. I'm not sure why we're giving away food.
Why are we
We-
giving away food?
That's what I'm asking.
I mean, why would we?
And we don't give away food any other time. So
Right.
I think that the program can be discussed.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a way to deal with the cost.
But I just one more question. With arts and culture, we've talked about how that person's not going to be an event producer and doing big scale events. So if Juneteenth is falling under arts and culture, that means that person is doing an event. And so I would just like clarity on like, I think we should just not hear necessarily, but think about
Yeah.
that piece of it. Because I know the arts and culture person historically has done a lot of events. We've talked about shifting that away. But we
Right,
have these
that
events
seems
that
more
haven't
like a
found new
rec.
homes.
Cultural affairs, but
I think Mr. Weary should come back to us with a plan as to who in the town is going to run this.
Yeah, for both of them, because that was a problem for July 4th last year too. So who in the town is going to be the person in charge of these events? And perhaps we can put that on the agenda for the next Health and Community Services meeting.
and it's not that far away. Is anything reserved yet for any of those things?
I don't believe.
No, the conversation for Juneteenth hadn't started.
No.
Okay, well,
And I don't think we're behind, but I don't think they've been reserved.
I'm just saying.
Yep.
For Fourth of July in particular, unless you reserved the fireworks guy last year,
You did it.
might want to hop on that. And I'd be in favor of just like doing, if we're doing both, I just think we go a little nuts with like stages and music and screaming and lots of stuff, but that's just me.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. If we're going to be charging folks for food, we got to give them some reason to come there.
Yeah, but I mean, there's reasons, but it doesn't have to be, over the top.
No. It was pretty small. It was like a simple stage and a couple bleachers.
Okay. Go ahead. What's your next?
This is a
assessment?
small item. In their presentation, YouthNet had requested an increase from $15,000 to $20,000 for this year, which I don't think was discussed, but I wanted to make sure you had
I
an
don't-
opportunity to.
Yeah, the request to be, they wanted additional funding for that mental health program that they wanted to bring into the
Wanted to
schools. I
train-
forgot what it's actually called.
Ugh, I can't remember the name of it.
I mean, I think it's a good program, but I don't know that I want to raise the amount we're contributing to YouthNet.
Yeah.
I don't want to
I feel
raise.
like they can find funding elsewhere maybe to help.
I also feel like the other,
They find other funding.
We're also doing
already.
stuff through our health department, I think, around this area. as
They
well.
do, but the specific they're asking that they're asked for is for to train to work directly with middle school kids outside of the counseling office. They're finding that some of the conversations that kids are wanting to have, or they don't want to take to the counselors. And it's across the country, the understanding, or at least the feeling that school counselors don't understand me. But this one particular teacher I can go to. So finding that one teacher and training that teacher to be someone who can help advocate for them and help them like feel comfortable talking. It's a $5,000 for 2 people to be trained, one at South Orange, one at Maplewood Middle. And that would be that person trained.
so South Orange is giving them an extra 5,000?
I understand.
Oh, I
that
doubt
South
it.
Orange is taking the same approach
Mhm.
you are discussing,
And
Not increasing.
Not
the
wanting to,
funding.
increase.
not wanting to increase it.
I'm not interested in increasing.
I gotta agree. I mean, I like the program, but at some point I feel like there needs to be more effort maybe to increase donations.
They've actually put a significant effort into it. I mean, their programs are self-sustaining for the most part.
Yeah,
It's paid for via donation. So
I think it's a three votes against the 5 extra. Right?
Yeah, I'm a no vote for the extra money. Sorry, Eastnet. Appreciate you.
That is all I have.
What about, didn't the Springfield Avenue Partnership ask for an increase from the
They-
township?
They did, but it was tied to
Yeah.
us requesting of them that they clean around the fridge.
Okay.
Mhm.
What about the Village Alliance?
No.
No increase?
not that I
There
remember.
was an increase.
No, there was an increase just because something was wrong last year. And I guess the chair, Amy Howlett, was on that Zoom to explain, but she wasn't elevated, so she couldn't. There was an increase, but it was something that was just, I think, misaccounted
I-
for last year.
Can you look at that? If you can pull it up, it'd be even better. But there's an increase for the director's salary and she just started, so.
I think that was the increase because Ms. Delec got a raise last year, I think, right? So it wasn't,
No,
no?
it was
was for
over
her?
2023.
I know they increased the assessment by 3%.
I don't.
I thought one
I
point.
think it was only.
No,
like-
1% was the.
Oh, that was
partnership.
Springfield Avenue.
So their request this year was 2024 proposed 12,700 for cleaning and 2,800 for landscaping. So
What was it? Is that over last year?
that was the same, let me see, 2023. Oh, there. Yeah, they say that they received last year 1,300 less than they requested. But let me see. Yeah, we have, so we would have to increase them from 14,200 to 15,500.
Well, didn't you do that with the partnership too? You reduced them last year?
I didn't. But
Somebody did.
That our previous administrator.
there was some confusion on that, and I told them they got to deal with what they have.
Right, but I think somebody cut both special improvement districts by 10% or something like that.
If that was a purposeful cut, I think it was never relayed back to the SID, so they just thought they didn't get all of their funding.
Oh, I see. So we,
We talked
If that was a true-
year, so they were, after the budget was introduced.
so are they trying to get money from last year that they didn't get, or are they trying to get?
They
more
want to
money?
go back to what was their.
What was their
2022
original
funding.
request? And we charged them nothing, am I right, for DPW services down there for all the closing of the street and closing of the street, and who pays for the cop?
We do.
I don't know.
Yeah,
We
that's
do.
a lot that we give,
Yeah.
especially on weekend.
So, but I don't know how the budget got cut last year, to be honest, the two SIDs. I don't know what happened. Because we never made that decision.
I don't know either.
So I would put them back at whatever the number was in 2022.
Can we also get an analysis though, on what it costs us for the extra stuff with our public works and, because we're also setting up the
Tables and
streeteries
tents
for,
and-
building stuff.
Yeah.
Be nice to have a line item of that I mean, it's good to have it because this, the SID assessment on the property owners down there who don't maintain their property necessarily to the pleasure of many people, but they still fight the assessment increase and all the services directly impact them in a positive way. So I'd like to see what else we spend on the village over and above what we give the Village Alliance.
And one thing we had discussed is now that we're providing the nicer barriers and the platforms, so we
Mhm.
take a look at the fees that we charge for that. So,
Mhm.
it was too soon to do it for this year, but we'll do that for next year. And we can look at other areas like that where we can, kind of target covering our cost with their fees.
That's
Yeah.
charging the businesses an increased cost to do these streeteries. That's not the SID. I think Ms. Adams
No,
Oh.
I mean, but
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
not
just in
opposed to
general.
that, but there could be, I mean, I just want to know, I want sort of a figure of what we spend outside of what we give them in the budget.
Yeah, what our in-kind contribution is.
Because we do a lot.
And it's cool to see too, like, you know, from the MPP stuff, right? We have to, the town has to do the in-kind, so it's cool to see on those spreadsheets that Ms. Wallace does, seeing like
Right.
what we're spending, what the town is doing.
Because I'm not necessarily looking to get the restaurants to cover the cost of the streeteries, but it's fair for our, to know what it costs us aside from just building them and purchasing the equipment, but
It'd be also interesting to see like how much in-kind we're giving towards the village versus our other business districts.
yeah.
It's probably not equitable.
It's just
Like
good.
from Mayfest, the partnership pays for half of the DPW
Yeah.
and some cops.
Mhm.
So it's negotiated, but like for the art walk, I don't think there's
Right.
payment.
I don't think we.
Yeah.
And if we're paying overtime cops, that's a non-starter for me. We got to start. Yeah. The entire bill, but, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I pay $4,000 for one event just for cops. So. Because then there's opportunities for them to cover those expenses that we don't have that opportunity with regard to sponsorships and stuff like that. So anyway, anybody have anything else? Do we have anything else from you, Mr. Wary?
Don't know.
Mr. Color J?
Yes, Mayor. I just want to remind everyone that we have, since I've been here, always introduced a budget by the statutory deadline. So that's April the 2nd this year. So we're really going to need to make decisions on some of these open issues by like March 25th at the latest, because it's going to take a week for us to prepare the state budget documents, the COLA ordinance that we're going to need to introduce on the same night, and the resolution to introduce the budget. So we got a couple weeks, but
Yeah, it goes
we
back.
got a couple weeks.
Yeah, I expect that we'll be, you know, this will come to you in increments, but we'll have something for you probably Monday or Tuesday of next week, and maybe some discussion items after the.
When's our next finance committee meeting? It's not,
It's the first Friday of the month, so it's too late.
so
'Cause then you're already
maybe-
into April.
might we want to have another finance committee meeting?
If you prefer the, a regular township committee meeting, yeah. we-
Well, I think it's just good to get everything like hashed out at it, so we're not, you know, having longer discussion at TC
that would
meeting.
certainly-
And then bring those recommendations. to TC.
That would, well.
We won't have
we'll
time.
have an opportunity to bring them back to the TC before adoption or introduction, because
No,
we have a
no.
TC meeting next week, and then the
Right.
following meeting
Right,
will
right,
be introduction.
But at least we can get it to the TC before April 2nd, that way. And we can hash out some stuff that we might need to hash out, or if you'll have everything perfect, then we'll be fine.
Well, next week is the last meeting before the, right? So are we discussing it next week, next township committees?
You wanted to have an extra town TC meeting, did you say it?
I
No,
You wanna
would
talk about it
bring
next week?
Something to the township committee before the regularly scheduled meeting next Tuesday.
right.
And if we have any discussion, you could have it at Tuesday's meeting.
Okay, all right.
So I
then
guess
we're
the
gonna do
question
that.
is, do you want a
be
finance committee
good.
meeting this
Yeah.
week? Mr. Jaffis is away.
No, I know. Then we'll just do it at TC. Yes,
Luca,
Yes.
Ms. Engel.
Yes.
Mayor Adams.